I have been in a bit of a slump, a life slump, and a reading slump. Long story short of why I've disappeared for a minute. In the famous words of Amberlyn Reed, mental things is scary.
I need people to know that, like, mental things is scary.
But I'm back and I have been working the past month on two more in-depth literary analyses of two books. They're just taking a little longer than I expected, so I wanted to get something fun and shorter out. But it's by no means short. This is going to be a long video, I'm sure, but it takes a little less mental work than my other two projects currently are taking. And since I was in a reading slump, I was actually in the mood for something more fun. I'm usually reading horror and thriller, but I'm like, I think I need something a bit more lighthearted just to fit the mood I'm in. I was scrolling and scrolling on my Kindle and I came across Dating After the End of the World by Jeneva Rose and I was like, I recognize that author. Turns out I've read most of her thrillers. I actually didn't really love them. They're okay. This is a romance kind of set in the apocalypse. And that sounds kind of amazing because I just got done watching The Walking Dead and various spin-offs of The Walking Dead. I'm in love with the show. So I saw this and I was like, well, that sounds kind of perfect. It sounds fun. It sounds like it'll bring me back into the mood that The Walking Dead had me in, hopefully.
You are about to shit your pants.
So yeah, we're going to get into this review of Dating After the End of the World, and I actually liked it. Usually do rant reviews, so this is a little different. This book isn't perfect. It still was only 3 stars, but I don't have that many bad things to say about it. It was fun, and I'm going to go through my thoughts with you of what I was feeling at the time and just chapter summaries basically. And let's let's get into that. Also, I'm so sorry if my ring light on my glasses is distracting. I'm out of contacts right now, so hopefully soon I'll have contacts again, so you won't have to deal with this. I tried to set it a bunch of different places, and like no matter where I set it, it's reflecting off my glasses, so I'm so sorry. So, Dating After the End of the World by Jeneva Rose follows Casey Pearson, who grew up with a doomsday prepping father and left home at 18, tired of the unconventional life. But a decade later, a viral outbreak that turns people into zombie like creatures forces her to return home, and when she gets there, she's surprised to find her high school bully Blake Morrison among the group of survivors her father is housing. She has to learn to live with her enemy, except he's also hot now, so sign me up. This sounds like a good time, right? Chapter 1 is a flashback to 2009, where 13-year-old Casey Pearson is spending the Saturday with her father. You know, the classic father-daughter bonding activity. They're digging holes to build a perimeter for the property, this rural Wisconsin property that her father owns. And Casey has been doing this the past few years with her dad, not building the perimeter, but prepping. And she's beginning to resent her father's prepper lifestyle that has consumed the past 3 years of her life. Her dad, Dale, insists that this is necessary to keep them safe, but Casey is frustrated and exhausted and breaks down to her dad into tears, admitting to her father that she's getting bullied at school for being a prepper. Specifically, the charge is led by one boy, Blake Morrison, who fills her locker with canned goods after she gives a presentation about her summer prepping activities. And, well, of course, she opens it and they fall all over and laugh at her, and, classic stupid teenage bullying. Casey's crying to her dad about this, and Dale comforts her, and they joke about Blake not being allowed into the compound when the end of the world does arrive. And then we go on to chapter 2. It's 16 years later. Casey is a doctor now who's on shift trying to catch a quick coffee break from an incredibly busy day. There has been a new outbreak, which has the hospital over capacity. Though the news is reporting that this outbreak is very serious, that this illness popped up overnight, Casey's not too worried about it because stuff like this happens every year. As she's contemplating this outbreak, Nate strolls into the room, a fellow doctor and her now fiance, who she claims he's got it all: looks, height, brains, a great job, and a full head of hair. So I'm not exactly sure what it is he sees in me. Girl, you're a doctor too. Why are you selling yourself short already? Saying that you don't know why he picked you. Don't you guys have like the exact same position?
I need to correct you on that point.
Anyway, they take a quick chance to get a smooch in, but are interrupted by another nurse. She lets them know that the emergency room is completely backed up and they're running out of beds, so Casey and Nate go out to handle things. The nurse also lets them know that there are a bunch of repeat patients that they saw the day before and their symptoms are worsening, so maybe check on them first, which they do. But before they split up, Nate questions when her dad can visit because his parents and him want to meet her dad before the wedding. He's never met her dad. I take a long sip of my coffee. It's still too hot, but I need time to come up with an excuse while also going through the Rolodex of reasons I've already given him for why he can't meet my dad. Let's see. There's the farm that doesn't exist that he has to take care of. He's had every doctor's appointment under the sun, jury duty, can't use that again. His truck's in the shop. He's on medication that he's not supposed to drive on. He caught the flu again. He's got an old army friend staying with him. I'll ask him, I say, knowing full well that I won't, and ultimately I'll tell Nate that he can't come for one reason or another, once I think of one that I haven't already used. It's been nearly 2 years since Nate and I started dating, and a month ago he slipped this sparkly rock on my finger and asked me to marry him. It's too big for my taste. Red flag, he should know your taste. But I told him I loved it, and I said yes. Afterward, Nate wanted me to call my dad to tell him the news, but I claimed it went to voicemail and that I'd call him back. I never did. Your dad can stay with us too, and if the driving in the city is a problem, he could take the train down from Harvard and I'll pick him up. I'll let him know. Another lie. The truth is, I haven't really spoken to my dad in 9 years. I mean, aside from occasional short replies to his lengthy texts letting him know I'm still alive. But I can't tell Nate that, because if I did, I'd have to explain to him why I don't really have a relationship with my dad. That's not something I'd ever intend to revisit. I left that part of my life behind, and that's where I wanted to stay. I'd really like to meet him, Casey. I know, and he wants to meet you too, I say. It's not a total lie. If my dad knew Nate existed, he'd want to more than meet him. He'd welcome Nate with open arms and treat him like the son he never had. So here we have the first red flag of their relationship. They've been dating 2 years, they're engaged, yet she's hiding the truth about her father from her partner and about her past entirely, basically. I don't know about you guys, but I would not be marrying someone that I felt I couldn't confide in. Anyway, they split up to tackle their patients. Not tackle their patients, tackle treating their patients. So the first patient that Casey sees is an older woman who visited about 10 hours prior. She has a fever of 102 degrees, brain fog, extreme fatigue, and confusion. In fact, she doesn't know who she is or where she is, which is super odd and concerning as the flu isn't supposed to make you lose your memory. So Casey orders a CT scan to rule out a head injury, and Nate is asking her, like, why? When they see the woman shaking, they check her temp, and it has dropped from 102 degrees to 89.8 degrees in about 15 minutes, which is pretty impossible. They are super puzzled about this, but distracted when another patient who was writhing in pain a few moments ago now lies completely still. So Casey goes to check his pulse when suddenly he bites her. Yeah, Nate is trying to get him off of her and pin him down when all hell breaks loose in the hospital. A nurse 4 beds down gets bit. They're screaming everywhere. There's patients attacking anyone in sight. And Casey's like, Nate, this shit's a lost cause. Let's get the fuck out of here. So they leave. And then we're into chapter 3. It's 6 weeks later, and Casey and Nate are in his apartment, having hidden there since the outbreak. Casey is looking out the window, watching a woman stumbling along, asking where she is and for help. And Casey, who in a different life would have previously helped her, knows that this is a bait to draw out someone like her who hasn't been affected by the virus. And you're probably asking, well, didn't she get bit? Yes, she did. She even got really sick too, but after 24 hours, her fever broke and she remained normal. So, this virus isn't like the classical zombie virus where you get bit and you're guaranteed to become a zombie. I've learned the virus affects each person differently. I'm not sure why, but I know it does. Some, like the woman roaming the street or Miss Klein, my patient at the hospital that night, lose all their memories, a total brain wipe. About 12 hours after infection, they become a shell of a person, a body with no sense of purpose or belonging. I call them gnomes, stands for no memories. I don't know what other people call them because it's just been Nate and me since it all started. Actually, he calls them losers because they lost their memories, but we're not on the same page with that name. To me, this is another red flag from Nate that he's calling these poor people infected losers. Second of all, I really like that there's different types of zombies, but Nate, who is currently making them some rice, asks her what is going on outside as she's looking out there, and she says it's just a gnome. And she also sees a pack of biters who are covered in rashes and lesions as if they are burn victims. And we learn they don't speak like classic zombies, they only snarl and grunt. These biters end up attacking the woman, and Casey closes the curtain, having seen enough. So Nate pleads with Casey that they should leave and go stay with her father, since on day 20 of them in isolation, Casey got pretty drunk and spilled the truth to Nate about her father and her whole past. But Casey isn't even sure her dad is still alive. Sure, he was a prepper, but was he really prepared for a zombie apocalypse? Still, Nate is pushing her about it. Casey wants to try to last as long as inside as possible, not positive that they could make it if they ventured outside, but she agrees to consider it. But Nate, distracted from the conversation, notices the rice boiling over and goes to grab it, burning his hand and making lots of noise when he drops it and muffles a scream. Luckily, it seems it wasn't loud enough to draw attention, so she goes to use the restroom. Mind you, they have no electricity or working water, so she has to fumble around in the restroom with a flashlight. And after that, she's looking in the mirror, finding herself pretty unrecognizable since, hasn't been able to shower or eat very much, when she hears Nate yell shit, and she finds him in the kitchen bent over and gripping his hand in pain because the dumbass cut himself. I'm still worried about the noise. I'm always worried about the noise. It can attract biters, or worse, the burners. I call them that because all they want to do is see the world burn. They're the ones I'm scared of. When everything went to shit, some people took it as an opportunity to let the world devolve back into a primal war of winner takes all. At first, I thought they were also infected by the virus, but they weren't. They had just lost their humanity, or maybe they never had it to begin with. Without law and order or societal norms, there's nothing they fear and nothing that's stopping them from doing whatever the hell they want. They're fueled by greed and desire. Over the past 6 weeks, I've seen them use gnomes as bait to draw out biters or people like me and Nate, people just trying to survive. And God knows what else the burners are using them for. It's like hell showed up on Earth, and they decided someone needed to be the devil, so it may as well be them. Lo and behold, her fears about someone hearing Nate yell come true, and someone starts pounding on the door.
Little pig, let me in.
And we go into chapter 4. Casey knows these people are going to come in no matter what. Even if the voice claims his wife and child need help, it's like he's reading off a script, like he's done this a million times before. So she signals for Nate to grab the cast iron pan, and she dons a bat. Okay, Negan, love that. She decides their best play is to calmly invite them inside and make them think they're falling for the ruse. Only when they open the door, 2 men instantly grab Nate and start attacking him, and a third man comes in and goes after Casey. He has a shitty tattoo across his forehead that says Satin, which she assumes he meant to write Satan. Aren't you a pleasant surprise to find in a shithole like this, he says with a sinister smile. You must be Satin. This joke goes over his head, but the other men that are with him start laughing, which distracts him, and he looks at them, confused. But when he turns back to Casey, she swings that bat right into his head, and he goes down.
See how Lucille is getting to know our beautiful co-friend here.
So one of the other burners comes after her and starts choking her out. She's about to pass out when she remembers her father telling her to go for the eyes, nose, throat, or groin if she's ever pinned to the ground. So she gouges her fingers into his eyes and palms him in the nose, sending him flying back. The third burner releases Nate and starts towards her, giving Nate the chance to elbow the man's stomach, except her ankle gets grabbed by the burner on the floor, who pulls her down, and Nate escapes the other burner who was trying to come after her. And you would assume he would help out his fiance in the situation, right? No, he flees. Of course he flees. The man I've been with for more than 2 years, who asked me to marry him 2.5 months ago, who told me he loved me just a few minutes ago, gone in an instant. Fucking great. I knew he wasn't cut out for an apocalypse. Luckily, she's a badass. She manages to escape the burners and flee after throwing the hot rice that Nate was cooking on them. But before she leaves, she grabs a combat knife that her dad gifted her when she went to college. He tried to gift her a gun, but she wouldn't take that. Anyways, she grabs this knife, she heads down to the courtyard, knowing that her Nate made a plan that if they were ever separated in a situation like this, they would meet at his car to get away. Of course, his car's not there. It's a Porsche. Of course. What else would this prick drive? And then we go to chapter 5. Luckily, Casey has a truck that her dad gifted her when she got her license. She rarely uses it now. She only moves it for street sweeping and all that. I take off toward where I'm pretty sure I last left it parked, praying it's still there. It should have been in Nate's 2-car garage, but he was not open to that idea. His excuse for that arrangement being, "It's a Porsche, babe. It needs room to breathe." I roll my eyes at the thought of his selfishness. He may have been charming and useful when things were normal, but clearly he's not a good fiance to have in the end of times, especially since he ditched me at the first sight of danger. Sorry, girl. In what world would this dude be charming? Because not in mine. He sounds absolutely terrible. And that has proved to be true so far. Anyway, she finds her truck, luckily, managing to only have to kill one zombie on the way. When she gets into her vehicle, a bunch of them grab it or try to grab onto it, but she manages to lose them and she starts towards Wisconsin. After another hour on the road, my high beams light up the Welcome to Wisconsin road sign, signaling another hour or so before I reach my childhood home, a place I vowed never to return to. The compound my father created was mired in the past, a place to trap things in, only allowing them to grow within the confines of the world he created. His isolationism kept him safe and alive, but it also kept him from living. I knew if I ever allowed myself to get dragged back into his world, I would only become a product of what he wanted. Rather than a life of love, helping others, excitement, and new experiences, it would be one of fear, distrust, discipline. But with the world over and no new experiences to be had, not good ones anyway, and no one to love or help who I can't assume will try to kill me or eat me, home is exactly where I'm headed. Turns out it only took an apocalypse to bring me back. And we go into chapter 6. Also, like, damn girl, what did your dad do to you? My dad's a piece of shit, and it still took me forever to cut him off. I don't know if the whole prepping thing is really like worth cutting him off, but we'll see. So yeah, in chapter 6, she gets to the property and she pockets her engagement ring, not wanting to explain Nate or his disappearance, because honestly it just makes her look kind of dumb for even trusting the guy in the first place. She finds the spare key using a series of steps or an about face that only her and her father know. A 2-story farmhouse in the front is a dummy house, mostly used for storage, and the real house is a 3-story one in the back that is undetectable from those passing by. She knows because she helped build all of it. She's nervous about seeing her dad again, but still makes her way to the house when suddenly a pistol is pressed up against the back of her head. No big deal though. She's badass and she spins around, pulling it out of the person's hands. It's her cousin JJ though, who's 8 inches taller than her now, and he is shocked to see her alive and apologizes for pointing the gun at her. To his credit though, I bet she did look pretty suspicious, so. JJ tells her that her dad is gonna be so ecstatic to see her. Apparently, he looked for her the first few weeks, but it got too dangerous, and he thought that when the apocalypse happened, she would head straight home, and when she didn't arrive, he figured something bad must have happened to her. But JJ takes her to the house where a large man is sitting on the porch. The chair stops suddenly and the shadow stands. Heavy work boots thump across the porch, the boards creaking under the weight before a motion light is set off, illuminating the shadowy figure. His dark hair is speckled with gray, which continues into his thick beard. Despite being in his 50s, he's still built like a brick shithouse, complete with broad shoulders, a barrel-shaped chest, and a towering stature. I step out of the woods and into the light so he can finally see who JJ found. His eyes immediately fill with tears, as though he has found something he thought was lost forever. Casey? His voice cracks like he can barely say it. Hi, Dad.
Hi, Daddy.
You're a sight for sore eyes.
And then we go into chapter 7, and he immediately tackles her into a hug. And it's a pretty heartwarming moment. I can't believe you're here. I looked everywhere for you. I know, JJ told me. I can see the pain I caused him. It's written all over his face, clear as day. But does that make me the bad guy? Or are we closer now to even, at least in my book? Damn girl, what did he do to you? Anyway, she tells him that she drove here and he gets her up to date on who all is there. There's Elaine, their neighbor from up the street who was like a much older mother to her growing up. Tessa, her childhood best friend. Her mom, Tessa's mom, Meredith, the Carter family, who are out in the cabins, but she doesn't know them. He leads her to her room, saying that they can talk more tomorrow since she's probably exhausted and needs some rest. The catch is she does have a bunkmate, and can you guys guess who it is? It's the childhood bully Blake. A man lies sleeping on his side with a blanket covering his lower half. His wide, muscular back is on full display and his hair is cut short, military style. There's a tattoo of the Navy SEAL insignia on his shoulder. Is Dad trying to set me up? Because wow, this guy is. My thoughts are cut off when he rolls over. His brawny arm covers his eyes for a moment before he pulls it from his face, revealing those vomit green irises. Ugh, turn the lights off, he groans. As soon as I recognize him, I see red. No fucking way. This can't be happening. And then we go to chapter 8. She questions her dad on why the fuck Blake Morrison is in her childhood bedroom. And he's like, oh, you guys know each other? She's like, yeah, he's the bully who ruined my life. And we get this flashback of her in high school with the canned food locker situation where Blake calls her an honestly pretty funny nickname because her name's Casey. He calls her Head Case. When he calls her this, all his friends laugh at her, despite the nickname being kind of funny. He does suck. That does suck. She tells her dad that she is not sharing a room with him, but her dad's like, there's really nowhere else for him to go, so y'all are gonna have to work it out. And her dad leaves her with him, and Blake says, I'm glad you're home, Doomsday. He says her dad was super worried about her, and he knows because they're good friends. And he's teasing her a bit, but he's not really mean until he tells her, just because the world ended doesn't mean your hygiene routine needed to end too. She can't deny she's a mess though, and she goes to shower. She's in the bathroom, undressing for the shower, when Blake swings the door open. He's just offering her a towel with a very cocky smile plastered on his face. But we get a little breakthrough of his joking facade when he notices that she's covered in bruises and he asks if she is okay. She gets a bit uncomfortable with this and she kicks him out and has another flashback of their childhood years, one where he stuck gum in her hair. All I wanted to do was fit in, but Blake Morrison wouldn't allow it. I was the weirdo with the crazy dad, an easy target. Picking on me made him cool, and I wish he would have continued to just be my bully. I was used to that. I could deal with it, tolerate it, live with it. But no, he had to become something far worse. Blake fooled me once, but he won't ever fool me again. He had to become something far worse. OT, something more probably happened between them. We will find out. But next we're in chapter 9. It's the next morning and she wakes up to see Blake's bed perfectly made. So being petty, she rips all his sheets and blankets off and crumbles them up and throws them on the floor. Then Tessa, her best friend, comes in and they catch up a bit. She asks about Nate because she did know they were dating but not engaged. Casey's too embarrassed to tell her that he ditched her, so she just says they broke up. Tessa was also dating someone too, but had to kill him because he turned into a zombie. She's not too miffed by it though, because right before that she found out he was a cheating asshole, so deserved it. While they're talking, Blake comes into the room and just says thanks for that when he sees the blankets on the floor. They start bickering, and Tessa teases, asking if she should leave them alone because she probably senses the tension between them.
A lot of suspense there.
And then we get this note that he has a beard. Guys, not in my brain, he doesn't. I don't like beards, but also maybe I'm biased because they give me hives. Also, my partner's name is Blake, so I just picture him whenever he's mentioned in the book, and that man does not have a beard. Because again, I get hives. I have sensitive skin. Anyway, their argument is interrupted by 3 gunshots outside, and it's her cousin Greg who is shooting hazardly at a lone biter that got tangled in the barbed wire fence. Blake goes outside and appears with a sword. Okay, Michonne, this is definitely giving The Walking Dead. We got a bat and a sword used as a weapon so far. I mean, I guess there's not that many things you could use as a weapon, but it's giving that, you know what I mean? But he appears with a sword and he cuts the biter's head off, and then he gives Greg shit for wasting ammo and making noise that might attract more biters. The girls joke that Blake yelling is more likely to attract zombies, but he's got to prove his dick is bigger and all that. So before Casey can think about what she's even saying, she tells Tessa that Blake is kind of hot when he is mad. And Tessa gives her shit for lusting after the enemy and reminds her about the shit he pulled their senior year of high school. And we get a flashback from them where she's getting to school the first day of the year and notes she had a glow up over the summer and she was stressed about the torment that she would face from Blake that year. In her first period though, the only desk open was of course next to Blake, and he checked her out instead of laughing at her, and she kind of liked it. Now Tessa suggests that she should do it back to him. Could be fun and help her pass the time, but Casey says no, but gets a little upset when Tessa suggests that she could do it for her, and she tells Tessa not to mess with Blake. Tessa asks why. Because we're better than that. I suppose you're right, Tessa grins, but if you change your mind, I'm not opposed to taking the low road. I matched her amused expression and say, I'll let you know if I do, knowing full well I won't. Blake's an asshole, but he's my asshole. That's what I say about my boyfriend too, girl. We know you want him. We go into chapter 10, and Casey runs into Elaine, the neighbor who basically helped raise her, and they're all sitting down to eat when Greg comes slamming into the room yelling, fuck Blake. Casey tells him that she shares his sentiment, and he looks at her like he's trying to place where he knows her from. He finally clocks that that's her cousin. He is JJ's younger brother, and she hasn't seen him since he was 10, so it makes sense he wouldn't recognize her at first. But he finally places her and is so happy to see her because he thought she was dead. Anyway, he complains that Blake is always giving him shit, and JJ, his brother, is like, well, it's for good reason because you can be pretty reckless. And this starts them bickering, and this is when another woman walks in who's early 20s, full face of makeup with wavy red hair, and I so afraid here they were going to do the trope about redheads about her either being slutty or a bitch just because she has red hair, which I was going to lose my mind if they did, because I just see that too often in books and I'm sensitive about it. They kind of did it though for a minute, but she redeems herself later on. Turns out she's Greg's girlfriend. Her name's Molly. Or maybe she's not Greg's girlfriend because he seems not into her at all, and turns his head when she tries to kiss his cheek. Yeah, I think we originally were gonna go for the bitchy redhead trope because she gives Casey attitude right away when she sees another woman until she learns that she's Greg's cousin. So Molly realizes she isn't competition for Greg. And then she's all fake nice to Casey. She also keeps calling Greg Pookie, which I hate so much. And she's like super duper annoying all over Greg. And Elaine gets her to leave by asking her to go pick some tomatoes. After she leaves, they all erupt into laughter, and Greg is super annoyed. He says she's super clingy and they aren't dating. Apparently, they hooked up one time and the next day the world ended. He's been stuck with her since. I initially thought that Greg was gonna reject her and she was gonna go after Blake since she set up this like bitchiness when she thought she was competition for Greg. But that doesn't happen. And she actually turns out to be like a nice character. Not the way that she was set up to be, which I liked. Anyway, they ask him why he hasn't just broken up with her. And he says she would go crazy and kill him. Plus, it's not like there are a lot of other options around. I mean, she's the only girl here my age who isn't family. Well, besides you, Tessa. I mean, you've got 9 years on me, but I could go to Cougar Town. Greg wiggles his eyebrows up and down. She gives him a disgusted look and says, "Forget what I said. I think you should stay with her." "I agree. She's lovely," I say, backing Tessa up. "You sure?" He looks at Tessa, trying to do the best impression of a male model. "You better be careful, Greg, or I'll sick Blake on you," she quips. "I'm not afraid of Blake. He's a little bitch." "I'm a what?" Blake asks, startling us. He stands in the doorway, having quietly entered without any of us noticing his presence. Closing the door behind him, he walks in with a sword in hand. Both he and his weapon are covered in decay, remnants of the biter he slayed. "I think you heard me, otherwise you wouldn't be asking me to repeat it." "Oh, come on, say it again for me then, Gregory," Blake challenges. "Boys, there are enough things to fight beyond that fence out there. So we don't need any of that in here." Elaine's words insert themselves between the two men as she points her spatula back and forth. They break off the fight, and Blake asks JJ if he's ready to go out on a supply run, and Casey says she wants to go. Blake's like, "No, you haven't gone through training." Casey insists she is going, and she goes to grab her shoes and jacket, and we go into chapter 11. She sees her dad by the truck Blake and JJ are loading, and she lets him know that she wants to go on the supply run. Her dad tries to tell her she should rest a few more days, get acclimated. That pisses her off because she's like, "I grew up here." Her dad says things are different now, and that's when Blake and JJ come up to say goodbye, and she's like, "I'm ready to." But her dad puts his foot down and says there are rules and he cannot make exceptions. She says, "What rules? Only big, stupid, muscular men can go?" But he insists she isn't ready because he doesn't know her combat skills are like anymore, and she doesn't even know the last time she fired a gun, which is when she was 18, but he doesn't need to know that. He's treating me like I'm fragile, like I could just shatter at any moment, but he's the one who forced me to be strong. It was the only thing he would let me be, and now he doesn't trust that I am? What was the point of all that training if I'm never going to be able to use it? "Dad, my combat skills are fine. I literally took out 3 burners yesterday." "Burners?" Blake furrows his brows. "Don't you mean zombies? This is exactly why you can't come. You don't even know what we're dealing with." I step toward him, positioning myself just a foot away from his face, showing that I'm not intimidated by him in the slightest. I don't care that he's nearly a foot taller than me or that his biceps are practically the size of my thighs. I jab a finger in the center of his chest. He doesn't flinch. I don't care that it feels like I'm poking a rock right now, either. "No, I don't mean zombies, Blake, and I know exactly what I'm dealing with. A complete and utter dickhead." I thrust my finger into his chest as I say each syllable. "I think she's talking about you, Morrison," JJ simpers. Blake rolls his eyes and says, "Yeah, I'm aware. I know this area like the back of my hand. I did 8 years of combat training, graduated from medical school, and I'm a resident doctor. So you know what that means? I can navigate better than you, can survive just as easily as you, and if someone gets hurt, I can actually do something about it." I stare into his eyes, waiting for his response. "Were," he says. "What?" "You were a doctor in residency, and now you're just a pain in my ass." Rage thrums through my veins, churning inside me. My hands become fists at my sides, and it takes everything in me not to throw one at his jaw. He's the one who's a pain in the ass, not me. This is my house. I belong here. He's just an intruder. What are you even doing here anyway? No one wants you here, Blake. I was asked to be here. By who? The betrayal is already seething through my body, and I have no idea who to direct it at. Dale, he says with a smirk.
Dale could get under your skin. He sure got under mine. Because he wasn't afraid to say exactly what he thought.
I turn to my father, who stands by idly, letting the argument play out before him. I thought Blake just fled here. I had no idea my dad invited him. How could he do that to me? Why would you invite him to live here? I plant myself squarely into the earth, bracing myself for whatever nonsensical reason is about to escape his mouth. Because we're friends. Oof! Turns out they're friends because he hired him a year ago to help maintain the property and build new stuff. And they became fast friends, and he didn't realize that he was the same Blake that bullied Casey in high school. She argues that there aren't that many Blakes around, but he says he hasn't heard her say anything about him since she was 13. So, can she really expect him to remember? And that's actually a valid point. But it turns out she stopped telling her dad about Blake because his solution was always to tell his parents or report him to the school, and she knew that would just make things worse. Her dad doesn't know that the bullying went on until she graduated high school. But yeah, Blake and her dad insist that she needs to pass firearm training and hand-to-hand combat before she goes on run, despite how much she went through to get here and the fact that she's probably seen more action than any of them. She keeps insisting, so Blake's like, okay, you can go if you can take me down, which results with her on the ground when he dodges her attack. Nice try, crazy Pearson. The element of surprise is certainly a powerful asset. When you actually have it, that is. Blake stands over me, smiling. He offers me a helping hand, but I swat it away. I don't need your help. Panting, I pull myself up and get back on my feet. Suit yourself. Now, are you done? Not even close. I square up with him, fists raised, making him think I'll attack at any second. JJ and Dad take a step back, giving us our space. I stare intensely as I circle Blake like a predator with its prey, waiting for the right moment to strike. He watches me, half amused, but he won't be soon. I fake a low jab at his kidney, then bring my right arm around in a dramatic, overly telegraphed hook motion. Halfway through, I dive and shoot down toward his legs. Blake doesn't bite at either punch. When I plunge forward, he merely steps back and pushes my head down, forcing me to land right on my face. Grass and dirt enter my open mouth, and I choke on the unwelcome microforest. I spit several times, trying to get it all out, and wipe my face with the back of my forearm. Give it up, Casey. He leans down and pats my back twice between the shoulder blades, punctuating my defeat. But what he thinks was the sharp rap of a period is merely a comma to me. Okay. Kind of a banger sentence. I roll into my back and with a quick, sweepy motion, kick Blake's legs out from under him. His tailbone smashes into the ground before his head rocks back, following suit. Damn, JJ gasps. That's my girl, Dad says. I flip over and mount him, pinning his arms under each of my knees. One hand hovers over his throat while the other is cocked back, ready to strike if needed. Yield, I say, grinning. Blake smiles back, and then he drives his shoulders into the earth, lifts his chest, and rolls his hips. In an instant, his boots are right in front of my face before they cross in an X over my chest, pulling me back and slamming me into the ground. He sits up and looks down at me, pinned to the grass. Not bad, Pearson, not bad at all. Get off me, I yell as I try to writhe out of his grip, but I can barely move under the weight of his legs. Then yield, he smirks. The green in his eyes glows with excitement at his forthcoming victory, but he's going to have to earn it. I twist my hips back and forth, trying to roll him off of me, but he's too heavy, and it just results in me slowly dry humping him while he pins me down with even more force. Blake stares at me like a lion ready to go in for the final kill. Part of him hardens against my body, instantly changing his demeanor. The smoldering look on his face fades as his cheeks flush, betraying the truth of what he would like to do to me. Mind you, this is all happening in front of her dad. Are you done? He asks, trying to keep composure. I twist and squirm under his weight a few more times, fighting until I have nothing left to give. I guess I better be before you finish on my leg, I wheeze.
Well, Pardon me, young man, and excuse the shit out of my goddamn French.
He coyly smiles, releasing me from his death grip. Blake stands and pulls me up with him, forcefully drawing my head into his chest. Lowering his mouth next to my ear, he whispers, "Maybe next time." His hot breath on my skin sends a wave of warmth through my body. I push him off, creating a few feet of distance. The look on his face is like that of a cat who decided to let the mouse go just so it can catch it again later. I groan and stomp my foot. Blake turns and heads for the truck, tossing a cocky grin over his shoulder. "Later, Doomsday. I'll be sure to bring you back something pretty," he teases. You guys, the tension is palpable and I love it. Well, except that her father and her cousin are witness to that. It's a bit awkward. Hopefully to them it just looks like normal combat fighting. But you go on to chapter 12. Casey and her father are walking around the property, looking over the stuff that they built together, as well as the new stuff that's been built while she was gone. And she isn't ready to concede about every choice he's made, but does give him credit for the fencing that they built around the perimeter. But then 2 seconds later, she thinks about all the projects she made fun of him for, and that without those projects, they wouldn't have power, clean water, or food. So, like, make up your mind, girl. Are you glad about just the fence or all the other things that he did and had you help with? Then he hits her with a hard question of why she never came back to visit. I don't have it in me to tell him the truth because what good would it do? "Hey dad, guess what? I didn't come back here because I resented you for making me waste my childhood, for being the reason I relentlessly got picked on and why school was a living hell for me." Even the one summer I did come back, after freshman year of college, all I felt was sadness, like it was seeping up through the ground, growing roots into my body, and sapping the joy right out of me. I didn't come back because all we had was prepping, and I hated that more than anything. When I left for sophomore year of college, I knew I would never return, not unless I absolutely had to, not unless he was right. Oh, life happens. I was busy between med school and residency. I never even had time to go to the gym or go see a movie, let alone drive all the way up to Wisconsin and back. I say it as chipper as I can, emphasizing words like busy, med school, residency, trying to convince us both at the same time that it's the truth so we can move on. He doesn't buy her bullshit, she can tell, but he also doesn't press it. It comes down to the fact that she was ashamed of him, and now she's ashamed of herself. She cut him off to punish him because she felt that's what he was doing to her with all the prepping, punishing her. I think that this is really a valid feeling for her, that her childhood was lost to prepping. It's completely valid. I don't necessarily feel like it warranted cutting him off if that was the only reason she cut him off. But again, not my relationship, so maybe she felt that's what she needed. But while they're walking, they then run into Helen, who is beaming to meet Casey, and her husband also comes out, Chris, and them and their sons actually ended up here because they were headed to Helen's parents' lake house in Tomahawk when their car broke down, and Chris went looking for help when he stumbled upon Dale's place, and he told him about the zombies, which Chris and Helen knew nothing about because they'd been on the road. So Dale took them in, and her dad continues to be a sweetheart. She tells him, "It's great what you've done for them." He glances over at me. "It wasn't just me, it was us. But I wasn't even here. You didn't need to be, Case. We built this place together, so everyone that's here and safe is because of what we did." He's so sweet. I wish my dad was that sweet. But I'll shut up about my own personal issues. Her dad says that he has one more thing to show her, and she continues to think about the fact that she wants to kill Blake because he's living in her mind rent free. She's not obsessed with him at all. And we go into chapter 13, where they go down into a basement. They head through a tunnel that opens up into a well-lit room, and down there is a man and a woman in denim tuxedos polishing guns. The walls in there are packed with all different rifles, handguns, and melee weapons. And people that are polishing guns there are her Aunt Julie and Uncle Jimmy, and like everyone else, they are so happy to see her live. And her dad tells them that she needs to practice shooting, so they all head out to practice. But before they do, Casey's dad hands her some gold throwing stars, which were apparently her favorite weapon growing up, and that's cute that he remembered that. And we go to chapter 14. She's still a master at throwing stars, and her dad says that if she could carry 1,000 of those around, she could take out a whole army. And she's like, it's easy when I picture the target as Blake's face, and her dad's laughter fades. He says that Blake is a hardworking man, and if she would just give him a chance, he could show her that he has changed. I twist my lips, moving them side to side, thinking back to all the horrible moments Blake caused, all the tears he made me cry, all the nights I spent in bed, feeling more alone than any young girl should. I could forgive those if only the moments had stayed bad. It's the good ones I can't forgive. And we get another flashback where she's getting into her truck and it doesn't start. So Blake pops up and asks if she needs help, and she's thrown off because he's been nothing but nice to her since the start of the year, but she doesn't know if she can trust it. She assumed that he was just playing the long game to pull some kind of big prank joke on her or whatever. But she thinks, well, maybe he has changed, so she accepts his help and she gets butterflies watching him work on the car, and he ends up getting it working, and she tries to pay him a little money for his time, and he suggests they go get ice cream instead, which she agrees to. But apparently that led to her getting hurt far worse than the bullying ever did, and she won't ever let Blake hurt her like that again. And coming out of this memory, she tells her dad that Blake will never change, and he says, you can't live with hate in your heart, Casey. It's not healthy. You're only saying that because you like him. No, I'm saying that because I mean it. Animosity hurts you, not the person it's directed at. It's like poison, but you're the only one consuming it. Why are you always taking Blake's side? You're supposed to be my dad, not his. You're supposed to protect me, not him. Casey, that's not fair, he interrupts. Fair? I'll tell you what's not fair. My aunt and uncle have stopped shooting, their necks crane in our direction, and they watch as I explode with anger. I don't care, though, because an audience isn't going to stop me from saying what I need to say. It's not fair that my childhood was simultaneously ruined both at school and at home. It's not fair that I was in fear of getting on the bus or driving to school every day because the only thing waiting for me was ridicule and humiliation. Even the closing bell didn't save me because I had to come home to my doomsday prepping father and perform endless manual labor. And it's sure as hell not fair that you gave me nothing to look forward to in life because you told me every single day that the goddamn world was going to end. My voice stops, leaving behind a reverberation nearly as loud as a gunshot. My shoulders rise and fall, matching my small, quick breaths as I work off the built-up energy from my rant. Dad lowers his head and lets out a heavy sigh like he doesn't know what to say or how to fix this. There is no fixing this. There's no going back. There are no redos. It just is what it is. He was right, and I hate him for that, but I love him for it too. Dad uncrosses his arms and meets my gaze. Hit me, he says. What? I step back, confused and surprised by his request, giving everything I just said. No. Come on, he beckons with his hands. You can kill two birds with one stone here. You need to train anyways, so you'll be ready to go on a run, and I can see how mad and upset you are with me. So come on, let's get that anger out. Fight me, he says, squaring up and planting his feet shoulder width apart. No, I'm not gonna fight you. I scoff, you're old. It'd be like elder abuse. And they go back and forth for a minute until he says, guess Blake was right about you not being ready. Such a shame because I thought I raised a fighter. And this obviously gets her to hit him just like he intended, and they start throwing jabs back and forth. And she's kind of fucking up the technique, and Dale tells her that she has lost it and she needs a lot of work to get as good as she used to be. And he says they should start practicing when gunshots ring out and they have to dart to see what's going on. Casey gets ahead of them because she's fastest, and she sees Helen and Chris's two young sons pass them in the opposite direction, screaming in terror because their dad is firing at the fence where dozens of biters are trying to cross. He is not a good enough shot, and one biter starts making his way to his side. Casey tries to get a clear shot of the biter, but Chris still ends up bit in the neck. He tells Casey to tell his family that he loves them, and he shoots himself through the mouth before she can respond. And she's frozen. Casey is snapped back to reality by someone yelling, "Push it, Pearson," and shooting at one of the biters in front of her that was going to go bite her. and the corpse lands on her and pins her to the ground and tries to bite her. And her dad pulls it off of her and says they need to move. They sprint to the house, shooting when they can, but there's too many of them and they run out of ammo when the front doors of the dummy house burst open and her father charges down the front steps with a massive gun and he starts blasting. But she has to stop him because she spots a truck pulling up, which is Blake and JJ, who jump out of the truck, and Blake goes to take out the last two biters with a machete. But Casey, not wanting him to show up like an action hero and save the day and get all the glory, pulls out two of her throwing stars and throws them at the biters before Blake can take a swing. And she takes them out. And we go into chapter 16. Blake asks what the hell happened, but no one is sure where so many biters came from. Casey lets him know about Chris, and Tessa asks if that is what the city is like. She says she has never seen so many biters in a group. JJ pipes in that it probably explains a downed coach bus they saw earlier a couple miles up, which gives them hope that this was just a one-time fluke, and they all go to take care of Chris's body. And we go into chapter 17. They're all sitting down for dinner, solemn and quiet and on edge, still trying to process what just happened, when Dale comes in and explains that Chris's family is inconsolable, validly, and they just want to be left alone for right now. And he also says that they moved all the biter bodies to the back right of the property and will start burying them tomorrow. And they will also put together a memorial for Chris. Her dad goes on to say that today was a wake-up call. They are not prepared to survive in a world like this, and things have to change fast. JJ tries to argue that this was just a one-time fluke, that it was just a big group because of the bus. But Dale says they don't know that, so they have to prepare for the worst, starting with reinforcing the fence, adding an electrical current to it, and now everyone has to learn combat, not just those who go out on runs. Molly says she can't fight, and Casey retorts that's what she told her dad when she was 11, but she learned, and so will she. They also need to go out on more runs. They only have enough food for 4 more months max, which surprises me because her dad was such a prepper. I'm surprised I don't have like more of a garden or a farm situation going on, but he's also feeding more people than he expected to be. So I guess it adds up. Casey asks about medical supplies, that they need something stronger than just over-the-counter medications. And her dad says to make a list and they will add it to the scavenge list, as well as anything else anyone needs. And Casey says she doesn't need to make a list because she's gonna go. Not until you're trained. He says like a broken record. So predictable. I more than proved myself today, Blake. He squints, moving his mouth side to side, sizing me up. Your hand-to-hand and blade combat could use some finesse. You're quick on your feet, but when knocked down, you're slow to get up. You've got great instinct, but you move with hesitation, like you're unsure of yourself. Your marksmanship needs works too. Aim is slightly to the left, which tells me you haven't shot a firearm in a very long time, so the only thing you proved today was that you need training. Blake lifts his chin, challenging me. I took out a third of them today while you were out collecting cans of fruit cocktail, so I don't know what the hell you're talking about, and I don't think you do either. If you're so effective, Casey, then why is Chris dead? He says, cocking his head. Oof. My mouth parts and tears prickle behind my eyes. I can't believe he said that, and from the looks on everyone else's faces, they can't believe it either. How dare he put Chris's death on me? That's completely uncalled for, Blake, my dad warns. I think it's a fair question, Dale. Like you said, we've never had a death before. He gestures to me with judgmental eyes. But within 24 hours of Casey's arrival, someone ends up dead. She's the only one that saw it, so she should explain exactly what went down. That way we can learn from it and make sure it doesn't happen again. Okay, maybe it is fuck Blake, because, like, how is he gonna blame Chris's death on her? That's completely unfair to put that guilt on her, as if she wasn't beating herself up enough about it, too. And he says he just wants to understand what happened, though, so she recaps it. She says she doesn't understand why he shot himself, though, and Blake says it's obvious he didn't want to turn into a biter, and Casey is shocked that they all think that's how it works. What is it? My dad asks, noticing my shocked expression. I snap out of it, shaking my head. Just because you get bit doesn't mean you'll turn into one of them. I make eye contact with each and every person at the table to ensure they'll hear me, and they'll remember that in case it ever happens to one of them. That's why I call them biters and not zombies. I let out a deep sigh. You all watch too many movies. How do you know they don't turn? Blake's tone is cold. Holding out my arm, I pushed my sleeve up, showing off a teeth-shaped scar engraved in my skin. Because I got bit, and I'm still your doomsday. Y'all catch the your doomsday? Mm-hmm. Little butterfly there. But Blake says that she could be an anomaly, but she says she saw the same thing happen at the hospital. You feel sick and it passes in a couple days, or you turn into a biter or a gnome. She then has to explain what a gnome is to everyone, and none of them have ever seen a gnome. And she explains that they can be used and trained to do things they would never do if they had their memory if put into the wrong hands. Blake scoffs. We don't know if any of this is actually true. You can believe whatever you want, Blake, but that doesn't make what I'm telling you untrue. I saw it with my own eyes. You get bit, and you have 3 outcomes: gnome, biter, or nothing. Chris had a 66% chance of survival, so he didn't need to pull the trigger. A 66% chance, his brows knit together, sounds more like 33%, because from what you described of the gnomes, that's just as bad as becoming a biter. Maybe, maybe not. I've never been around a gnome for more than a few minutes, so I don't know what happens to them. I don't know if they get better or worse. I don't think we should tell Helen any of this, Elaine says, at least for a little while. It'll only make it worse for them knowing Chris had a chance to live. I agree. Let's keep this to ourselves for the time being. Dad pulls his lips in. Not long, though. They need to know that they have a chance in case they do get bit, I add, and they all agree to that. But also, I hate Blake asking if, like, how do they know any of this is even true? Because, bro, are you a doctor? Did you see all the stuff she did in Chicago? I don't think so. So keep your mouth shut, you know? I mean, Blake might turn out to be great, but at the end of the day, a man is still a man. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not sorry for what I said. I'm sorry for not saying it sooner.
Anyway, Casey then asks Blake why he's so quiet, and his dumbass says he's trying to figure out how they never lost a single person until she showed up here. She, rightfully so, is pissed he's trying to blame her and reminds him he's the one who passed the bus and didn't check it out, or he could have warned them, and he stomps away, and her dad says that was uncalled for, and she's like, what about what he said? And her dad responds that they both need to cool it, and they have enough problems without them at each other's throats. And she says he should tell his friend that and storms off. And you know what? I think she's valid here. Blake was the one who started the whole argument and trying to place blame on her, so he should be the one to apologize first. But now Blake and her are both pouting in her room when she asks him what the fuck his problem is, and he says he doesn't have one. And she says she does. He just told everyone downstairs that it's her fault that Chris died, and she questions how he could even say that. And he apologizes and says that's not what he meant. He's just dealing with his own stuff too. And she says he hasn't changed at all, and they kind of argue back and forth, which then kind of turns into teasing, and they drift off to sleep. And we go into chapter 18. She wakes up thinking a biter is coming into the room and prepares to fight it, but she realizes it's already on top of her, and it sinks her teeth into her, which is, of course, a nightmare. And Blake wakes her, trying to calm her down. It's okay, I'm here, you're safe with me. I look into his eyes and I can see the myriad of meanings behind his words dancing around as he takes me in. Blake, shh, it's okay, you don't have to worry. He pushes a piece of loose hair behind my ear and his fingers trace my cheek and chin. My heart races and I hope it's not loud enough for him to hear it hammering in my chest. And oh my god, they're about to kiss when the bed sheets are ripped off of her, and she was dreaming that part too. What's actually happening is Blake is waking her up by ripping the sheets off of her and telling her they have work to do. He does try to wake her up though by patting his hands across her body like a bongo drum, and that is actually kind of cute. He opens the curtains in case he realizes it's still dark out, and she also checks him out while he changes, and he asks if she likes what she sees, and she's embarrassed and grabs her blankets and hides back under them and starts to go back to sleep when Blake pours cold water on her. She gets up and presses him against the wall, and they are still for a moment till he spins her around and pins her to the wall. Okay, foreplay. Oh, and then he pins her wrists above her head and leans in and whispers, "Looks like our training has already begun." This sends her into another flashback where 17-year-old Blake is tossing a log into a fire pit and asking if it's okay that he's there. She says, yeah, her dad won't be back until late. Blake had called me an hour ago asking if I wanted to come over and have a picnic with him. I told him it was late, that picnics were a daytime thing. To which he said, "There are no rules when it comes to picnics." I couldn't help but laugh and raced to get ready, rushing right over to see him. 6 weeks ago, I could barely stand to look at Blake, but now I couldn't look away. He was like a sweet craving I was trying to resist, my mouth watering at the very thought of him. Something about Blake changed the summer before senior year. He came back a totally different person, at least to me. His insults were replaced with compliments, his cruel pranks replaced with tenderness, and the wall I built around myself to keep people like him out was slowly crumbling. Blake took a seat on the blanket he laid out for us, his shoulder pressing up against mine. Although I was cold, I felt warm next to him, and it had nothing to do with the fire dancing in front of us. My heart raced, and I had noticed it beat a little faster when he was around. Blake unpacked a tote bag he carried out here, pulling out 2 Dr. Peppers, a Tupperware container, and a sleeve of Ritz crackers. "Would you like some charcuterie?" Blake grinned. He removed the lid, revealing a stack of Kraft singles and a mound of assorted lunch meats. I raised a brow. "You call that charcuterie?" "I do," he nodded, holding the container in front of me. I even unwrapped the Kraft singles. I hate Kraft singles, guys. "Very fancy of you," I smiled and plucked out a piece of cheese and a slice of ham. He did the same and said "Bon appetit" before popping them in his mouth. I nibbled at mine and watched him as he snacked and stared happily at the fire. It felt like this was Blake's comfort zone, his safe space, a place that he could just be himself, out here at night alone beneath the stars with a flickering fire. I couldn't help but feel lucky that he wanted to share it with me. My skin tingled like there was an electric current beneath it, begging to be touched. Before I could talk myself out of it, I reached for Blake, turning his head towards me and meeting his tender gaze. There were things I wanted more in life, but not in that moment. It was just him, the boy I had once hated with a passion, but the hatred was gone and all that was left was passion. I pressed my lips against his, and I knew instantly that the wall I had built around myself was all but ruins now. I freaking knew it from the beginning. I knew that there was gonna be some bullying to lovers, leap back to enemies, back to the current moment. Remember, he has her pinned against the wall. She asks if he calls this training and punches his kidney, and she trips him, but they both end up on the floor, her on top of him. And then he bucks her off by thrusting his hips up into her. Guys, this might as well be foreplay. Come on. And then he gets on top of her and says he will get off if she agrees to train. And she asks what his obsession is with training her, if he needs to be in control or something, but he says to keep you safe, Doomsday. Okay. But she says, "I don't need you to keep me safe, Blake," I call out as he heads for the door. Pausing, he glances over his shoulder at me. "I know you don't, but I want to." Ooh, like just kiss already, guys. Oh my god. But he leaves. She gets dressed and she meets Blake on the porch. She says she only came out because she wants to kick his ass, and he says that's what he wants too, because that will mean he trained her well. And he says they will start with a run, and notes that she has kept herself lean, and she gets a little shy with him checking her out. "Stop examining me. I gotta know what I'm working with, and I'm guessing your leanness has more to do with lack of sleep and calories than it has to do with exercise." I narrow my eyes. "Some of us worked for a living, you meathead." He ignores my quip and focuses on stretching his legs, pulling one foot up behind him and holding it there. I cross my arms over my chest and watch him do his little stretches. Girl, as someone who ran a lot in high school, you need to do stretches too. Blake grins. "I'm going to run 2 miles, and you're going to follow and enjoy the view. In the beginning, you're going to fall way behind, but if we do this twice a day, soon enough you'll be able to at least watch me cross the finish line." This cocky mofo, guys. But he's right. She will definitely enjoy the view. We all know it. He takes off running, and she initially uses too much energy trying to keep pace with him and catch up, which is a mistake because she has not exercised since she started med school, so she falls way behind and has to rotate between walking and running. And she finally gets back to the house, and he's already sitting there with a cup of water ready for her. And she tries to go back to bed when Tessa, Julie, Elaine, Meredith, Greg, and Molly all come out in athletic attire, and Blake lets her know that that was just the warm up. Now they're gonna have group training. Blake starts instructing them, and Tessa leans over and whispers, "This is probably his sexual fantasy, to roleplay as a drill instructor." "Can you imagine him in bed?" I whisper back. "The key to sex is penetration. Right now you have none, but when I'm done with you, you will." Blake asks what's so funny, and they just brush him off. But Casey is worried that he overheard and that he thinks she imagines what he's like in bed. Does he think I picture him in bed? Because I don't. Well, aside from that weird dream I had this morning, but that's just a subconscious thing, probably from all the stress. My palms start to feel clammy and my heart rate increases at the thought of him thinking that I do picture us in bed, but I can't. I couldn't even picture him picking me up, my legs wrapping tightly around his waist while he grabs my ass, my fingernails raking across his broad back. It's unfathomable. I shake the thought away.
Hot diggity dog.
They start hand-to-hand combat, and he forces Casey to help him demonstrate since she keeps blabbing to Tessa. Alright, so for this first exercise, I want Casey here to try to take me to the ground. She doesn't have to pin me, she doesn't have to get me to tap out, she just needs to make my feet leave. I drop my shoulder into Blake's side while he's still explaining the instructions and drive through the tackle, taking him to the ground. Ugh, he moans, hitting the dirt. There's a mix of muted laughter and gasps as I lie on top of him grinning. You didn't wait for my go-ahead, he says. I climb off Blake's muscular torso and get to my feet. Is that what usually happens in combat? The enemy calls out, I'm ready? I chuckle. Blake stands and brushes off the grass and dirt clinging to his pants, staring at me tight-lipped. What I meant to say was well done, Pearson. The element of surprise is a powerful tool indeed. Oh, guys, you know he's gonna get her back for that. And he does. When he challenges her to get him to tap out any way that she can. She gets close, but ultimately ends up on the ground again, and then she asks to try again. Okay, come and get it, Blake grins. He crouches a little, beckoning me with both hands. Oh, I'll get it, Blake. I'll get it so hard. Tessa's right. I should stop with the trash talk, both internal and external. Just focus on taking him down. I steal a couple of deep breaths and charge forward. This time I don't bother to try to fake him out. I run straight at him, fully erect and upright. He's so confused that he just absorbs my body crashing into him rather than a full-on attack. It looks like the most aggressive hug anyone's ever given. Blake glances down at me in surprise as I am wrapped in his arms. What was that? This, I say, raising my leg and kneeing him right in the dick. He sinks to his knees, moaning. His hands go straight to his crotch, holding it as he sucks in air. Several people gasp. Tessa claps and cheers. I'll get some ice, Elaine calls out as she scurries to the house. Don't waste the ice on Blake's nuts, Tessa yells, but Elaine doesn't hear or ignores the request. That was a dirty play, but I respect it. Plus, he gets her back by pulling her to the ground and lying on her so she can't breathe, so she has to tap out. I almost had you, I say. Almost is the key word. One day your ass will be mine, Blake. He simpers. I can't wait. Before I can respond, he leans into me and whispers, but until then, you're still not ready. Guys, I love the subtle flirting here, like fighting, flirting. I love it. Maybe that's unhealthy, I don't know, but I love it. And then we go to chapter 19. They have Chris's funeral. They burned his body though, because they were worried about the infection spreading in any kind of way, apparently. And Casey is still sitting by the fire hours later when her dad joins her, and he says he knows this must have brought up some bad memories for her. And we get another flashback. In the flashback, her mom and her are home alone when someone enters the house, and she hears a guy tell her mom, "We aren't going to hurt you." She tells Casey to run, but she doesn't. Instead, she sees one of the men stab her mother over and over again. The other men yell, "What the fuck?" since presumably this is not the plan they came up with. I think they were just robbing the house, and the guy decided, oh, let's murder this woman. But they all run after this. And her mom's like bleeding out as she instructs her daughter to call the police. But the house phone isn't working, and for some reason, her dad has her mom's phone. So she tells young Casey to run over to their neighbor's house and get help, saying she'll be here waiting. So Casey runs to the house, which ends up being Elaine's, and by the time the ambulance arrives, her mom's already gone, unfortunately. Coming out of the memory, her dad reminds her that it wasn't her fault, but she doesn't believe him. But she tells him it wasn't his fault either, which he also doesn't believe. He says he thinks about that night and wishes he would have left the cell phone behind when he was on an emergency call for work, but her mom insisted he took it to be safe. But I'm a bit confused here because before Casey in the memory was asking where her mom or her dad's phone was, and she said he had both of them. Why did he have both of the phones? I don't understand. Even for safety. I'm confused. Anyway, He says he failed at keeping them safe, but Casey says he has kept her safe and he is keeping a bunch of people safe now, and that makes him tear up. And she admits to him that she lied about the reason she stayed away. It wasn't because of time, it was because she resented him for her childhood and hated him so much. Yeah, I think he kind of got the message when he like went screaming off on him right before Chris died, but he does. He says he knows when her mom died, his world ended and he's been living the end of times for 20 plus years and he wishes he could give her her childhood back. Technically, I do kind of have my childhood back. A confused expression settles on his face. You know, because I'm back at home working on all our super fun projects. And even Blake is here, making my life a living hell again. It feels like I never left, I say with a shrug and a smile. Dad chuckles. Then, of course, Blake appears and lets Dale know that Chris was scheduled for the night watch, but obviously he can't do it, so he's offering to take over the shift. Dale points out that Blake has a run the next day, so he can't really do that, and Casey offers to take the watch. He tries to say that she can't, but she points out that she literally disarmed JJ while he was on watch, so she can definitely handle it. So Blake agrees, but he insists that he shows her what to do first, and we go into chapter 20. So he's walking her around the property, giving her instructions that she thinks are pretty obvious, and to be fair, they are. Like at one point, he literally tells her which way to turn when there's only one way to turn. He wants to show her the sniper tower next, which she literally helped build, so she's like, I don't need you to lead the way. And he concedes to let her lead the way then. And he tells her that he liked what she said to her dad that he overheard when he was walking up. And she gets miffed that he was eavesdropping, but he says he only brought it up because he didn't know what happened to her mom. But she cuts him off and says she doesn't want sympathy. He never cared to learn anything about me all those years he spent ridiculing me. And even the brief period when he was kind, he ended up weaponizing the vulnerability I did show him against me. But he says he knows that she doesn't want him to bring it up, but he lost his mom too right before he moved to Wisconsin. It's actually why they moved to Wisconsin, for a fresh start. And she doesn't know how to react. She thinks he's being genuine, but also maybe he's trying to lure her back in so he can hurt her again. But she does ask how she died, and it was cancer. She comforts him and says she understands the loss, and then they get to the sniper tower. He shows her some of the upgrades they made to the place. He says bye for the night while she takes over patrol. And we go into chapter 21. She's on her third pass over the property and is thinking about Blake and why he told her about his mom. He had never confided in her before, even when they were close. And ultimately, she thinks his trauma doesn't excuse how he treated her from 13 to 18. And her mom dying didn't make her a monster, so it shouldn't have made him one. And she's contemplating this when she hears a branch snap and gets hit from the side, sent crashing to the ground. The person on top of her covers her mouth, and of course, it's Blake testing her. I couldn't sleep with you on night watch. It's like having no patrol at all, he chuckles. You're such a dick. Only with you. The moonlight catches his verdant eyes, making them glow. I throw my head back to the grass, surprised at his admission. What? I mean, no, I'm not, he says nonchalantly, trying to play it off. You're being really weird. I squirm beneath him. Can you please get off? He starts to crawl off, but stops suddenly, shifting back into place, like we're tethered to one another. Our eyes meet, and a silence stretches between us as his body is pressed against mine. It should feel heavy, but for some reason it feels like it's part of me, and I'm used to the weight, the pressure. Blake, I say, what are you? Cutting me off mid-sentence, he lowers his head and plants his lips on mine, taking me by surprise. My first instinct is to push him off or slap him across the face, but I don't, and what surprises me even more is I close my eyes and kiss him right back. Deepening it, I pull him into me, my fingers combing through the short hair at the nape of his neck. His lips are unexpectedly soft, shifting in sync with mine like it's routine we've rehearsed before, and we both know all the moves. My heart beats faster and faster, and my skin turns hot like a fire's been ignited inside my body. I slip my tongue through the seams of his lips and find his massaging it. He purrs and rolls away, pulling me with him. As I straddle his torso, his hands grip my hips, and he hardens beneath me. Oh God, I'm kissing Blake Morrison. I'm kissing Blake Morrison. I told myself I wouldn't let this happen, not again, not with him, but it feels so good and I can't help myself. So I push the thought away and I kiss him harder, biting at his lip, making him moan. A memory comes flooding to the front of my mind, one I can't push aside. The memory is of her at Blake's house party. This is the first time they have hung out together publicly with other people, and at that point, her and Blake had been friendly for 3 months. They're sitting together in the house when the house phone rings and Blake answers it, and he looks angry during the call and he's super quiet. It seems like the person on the other end is mostly the one speaking. He hangs up and he insists that he's okay to Casey when he obviously isn't, and she tries to get him to talk, but he flicks her off and chugs a drink and then comes back over to her and looks really mean. Blake staggered back over to me, but his eyes were different, mean. The kindness I had become so accustomed to over the last 3 months was snuffed out in an instant. Something in him had changed. "Are you sure you're okay?" I whispered. Blake put distance between us, sizing me up before tightening his eyes and laughing, even though nothing was funny. "Why are you even here, Doomsday? Don't you have a well to dig or canned goods to sort?" I drew my head back at the mention of the nickname he hadn't called me the entire school year. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but I assumed it was a combination of whatever news he got on the phone and the alcohol. "Blake, you're drunk." I took a step toward him, placing my hand on his shoulder. "Let's get you to bed." He shrugged me off. "Did you hear that, everyone?" The music lowered and all eyes were on us, like we were center stage and a spotlight had just been shined on Blake and me. I hated every second of it. "Head Case Pearson is trying to take me to bed." The party erupted with laughter, and several people joined in, hurling insults and comments at me. I felt sick to my stomach, my heart hammered in my chest, and my skin began to perspire, sweat gathering at my hairline. "Blake, why are you acting like this?" I said in a low voice, hoping only he would hear me and it would snap him out of whatever this was. "I thought we were friends." I didn't want to say girlfriend and boyfriend or in a relationship because we had never put a label on it, but I felt like we were more. "Friends?" he cackled, slapping his knee to punctuate how funny he found it. His face turned serious, his eyes dark and cold. "I could never be friends with a freak like you." Some of the guys egg him on, and she starts to cry, which she doesn't want him to see, so she bolts out of there. And she realizes that all the time they spent together was one big cruel joke, and this was him getting to the punchline. The memory makes her jerk away from him now, and she asks him why he kissed her. He starts to say because he likes her, but she cuts him off and starts walking away. He follows and she tells him she knows he's trying to do the same shit he did in high school and she's not falling for it this time. He tries to kiss her again and she slaps him and tells him never touch her again. And she leaves, not looking back, because she knows if she does, she'll be under his spell again. And yeah, that was fucking shitty what he did to you back then. I could see why you're hating ass on him now. That's valid. But we go into chapter 22. Tessa and Casey just collapsed from their morning run to find Molly already done, showered, dressed, and with water waiting for them. They question how she is that fast, and she says she did cross country in high school. And as someone who also did cross country in high school, that makes sense because we had to run miles and miles a day. I would never do that again. I don't know how I did that in high school. Anyway, Blake and JJ pull up back from a run, and Blake got something for Casey. It's Sour Patch Kids, her favorite candy, which he knows because a memory pops into my head when I had forgotten or maybe chosen not to remember. We had gone to the movies together to see a horror film, and at concessions, he asked me what my favorite candy was. I told him Sour Patch Kids, so he selected those and a box of Reese's Pieces for himself, his favorite. "They're kind of like you in a way," I said. "First you were sour, now you're sweet." He grinned momentarily before it tapered, his face turning serious. "I'm sorry about the sour part," he said, and I smiled and waved it off. Without the sour, the sweet wouldn't be as satisfying. It sounded cute then, but now that I think about it, it's really not. I gave him a pass for how he treated me, basically gaslighting myself. How naive of me. Then again, that's what happens when you're young, dumb, and infatuated with someone. She rejects the candy from him now, and Blake tells her to let him know if she changes her mind. Molly then questions Greg if he got her anything, and of course he didn't, so she tears up a bit. Casey feels that Greg dragging her along is super unfair, and yeah, it is, especially if he's still like sleeping with her, which I think he is. So Casey spits it out, matter of fact, to her. "Greg doesn't like you. You were supposed to be a one-night stand, that's it. But the world ended, so here you are. If things were normal, Greg would have ghosted you, but he can't because you're both stuck living at my father's compound. I gesture with my hands, sweeping them in front of me. He's stringing you along because he can't avoid you. Plus, you're his only option, and if he had another, it wouldn't be you. The moisture in Molly's eyes resurfaces, but this time she's not able to make it disappear. Tears spill over, streaming down her face. I know it's hard to hear, but I can tell you from experience, it's better to be alone than to be with the wrong person. I fold my lips and nod, hoping she'll understand where I'm coming from and will be grateful that I told her rather than angry at the messenger. Molly starts to sob, and before I can try to console her, she's on her feet, bolting toward the house. Yeah, girl, that was a bit harsh. Which Tessa agrees with because she's like, what the fuck was that, Casey? Tessa can also sense that something is going on with Casey, and she tells her this and gets her to admit that Blake kissed her last night. And Tessa suggests to Casey that maybe Blake really has changed and has pure intentions. That suggestion pisses Casey off, and she asks Tessa which side she is on, and of course Tessa says hers. And Casey heads into the house, and as she does, she hears a loud crash coming from the first floor bathroom. No one answers when she knocks, so she opens the door and finds a body on the floor with blood pooling around her head. And we're into chapter 23. Turns out it was Elaine, who no one knew was diabetic, and she's been rationing out her insulin. So apparently, I think it doesn't actually say. I think she passed out from lack of insulin. And Casey is talking with some of the group, mainly the guys, I think. And she says they have to get her some insulin or she will die. But they tell her that all the pharmacies in the area have already been raided. So she asks, what about the hospitals? And they say they haven't searched those yet. Her dad argues it's too dangerous. The hospitals are crawling with biters and more people could die trying to get her insulin than if she just died, unfortunately. And Casey argues that while it is possible someone could die on the run, Elaine is guaranteed to die if she doesn't get any insulin. The risk is there on every run, and if they don't try, they might as well start digging her grave now. Her dad says the answer is still no. She says, fine, I'll go myself. And Blake volunteers to go with her. For once, she doesn't argue with him and she actually gives him a look of gratitude. And her dad, of course, tries the whole I won't allow it speech, and Casey says, Dad, enough, I yell. He freezes in place, and the whites of his eyes show. I know you want to keep me safe, and I know you're afraid of losing me, but don't let that fear cloud your judgment or stop you from doing the right thing. I walk over to him, pressing my hand against his chest, feeling his beating heart. If Mom was here, what would she do, Dad? Looking up into my father's eyes, I can see his sadness, not in the loss that already happened, and not the fear of losing me, but his sadness with himself for even suggesting that we don't try to save Elaine. He presses his lips firmly together and lets his head fall forward. Okay, I'll go, but I need you to stay here. I shake my head and step back. No, I'm going. She's right, Dale. Blake takes his place beside me. She's the only one who knows her way around the hospital, and she knows what we're looking for. It'll be quicker and safer if she comes with. They decide to go tomorrow, and all 6 of them want to go. Blake points out that 2 people should stay back to protect the compound. So they draw straws to decide who is going, excluding Casey because, as they've explained, she kind of has to go. Her dad and her uncle draw the 2 shortest straws, which means they aren't going to go. Her dad tries to argue this, but rules were rules. Plus, Casey says he's the best person to stay back because he knows the whole property and how to use all the weapons. He agrees, and Blake swears to him that he won't let anything happen to Casey. Casey rolls her eyes at this and says she won't let anything happen to herself, which, I feel like valid. She's not some damsel in distress, but Blake was also trying to comfort her dad, so I see both sides. And we go to chapter 24. They're at the hospital scouting the area, trying to get a feel for how many biters there are. They're entering from the back of the hospital because the front is pretty packed with biters, and at the back there's only 6. They decide to split up and they plan out who's going to take which biter and what. I won't go all into that with you guys because it's kind of boring. But she gets one biter with her throwing star, but the other ducks right as it's thrown. So it crashes into glass instead, which draws the biter's attention to her. And of course, as it's running at her, she can't get her pouch of throwing stars open. It's like stuck. Perfect timing, right? So she's about to shoot at the biter as a last resort, which she knows will attract a ton of attention and their mission will be over. But you gotta do what you gotta do. So she's about to shoot when Blake swoops in and saves her. She's pissed at herself because she swore she wouldn't miss, but Blake reassures her that there are no guarantees in battle and that's why they work as a team. With those zombies cleared, they head through the back entrance of the hospital, which is not a pretty sight at all. It's littered with blood, bodies, maggots on the bodies. Disgusting. Blake leads the charge, but he freezes for a moment when he sees something. JJ asks if he's good and he shakes it off and they continue. And Casey wonders how he's so spooked at the hospital when for sure he's seen worse than Navy SEALs. Which, I don't know, has he seen worse than like zombies? I don't know what happens in the Navy SEALs, but anyway, Gray asks her why she told Molly she was supposed to be a one night stand, and she says, well, you were stringing her along and it wasn't right. And Greg says, well, now she won't talk to him, and while he wanted that before, he kind of likes her now, and asks, is that love? Bro, this kid is dumb as fuck, but whatever. Casey's like, we could talk about this later. We gotta focus on surviving right now. So they are about to head up to the third floor where their ICU is when Greg suggests they also scavenge some food from the cafeteria, which is the first smart thing that's like ever come out of his mouth, and the group is pretty impressed. So they say they'll split up. Two of them will take the cafeteria, two of them will look for the insulin. Greg and Casey both don't want to go with Blake, so they do rock, paper, scissors to see who will be stuck with him, and of course she is. They have to walk through this area of dead bodies that's just surrounded by hordes of flies. Disgusting. And they also pass a lot of biters who are too weak to move, and Casey tells Blake that it looks like they're starving, and she snags a badge from one of the bodies in case the pharmacy is locked, if the generators are still going, which he gives her credit for. Very smart. I don't know, kind of obvious, but he gives her credit for that. They pass the nurse's station and Casey packs Blake's pack full of all kinds of supplies that are luckily untouched. And then they head to the med room when she's suddenly slammed into the wall by a biter. Blake stabs the biter, saving her life a second time, and he then guards the door while she grabs the insulin in the room and a bunch of other supplies they had. And then when she's done, she goes to leave, and Blake isn't standing guard at the door anymore. She finds him in the doorway of the ICU, staring at a biter that can barely walk, but it's making his way towards him, and she tries everything to get him to leave, but he will not budge. Even when she tries to push him, she screams his name, snapping him back into reality a little bit, and he moves just as the biter lunges at him, but it bites him as he shields his face like this. It bites him.
Oh, no. No.
And we go into chapter 25. She shoves the biter back and asks Blake what the fuck, but he's still frozen and crying, and she quickly bandages him up, and the bite is in the exact same spot where she got hers, so twinsies at least, right? But he's still in shock, and she needs to pull him out of it because it sounds like a horde of biters is heading their way. She tries slapping him. No light. What's the next logical conclusion? She kisses him. It works, but he says to go without him. So she kisses him with more force and tells him, let's go together. He looks very conflicted, so she squeezes where his bite is and pulls him with her. And they run to the elevator and force it open, and the elevator itself is on the first floor. So they have to jump the 2 floors. No other options. She takes his belt off. Not the fun moment I thought she would be taking his belt off for the first time in, but she takes his belt off and lassos it around the elevator cable to hold on to and tells Blake to go first. He says she should, but she argues that she's going to use her shirt because he is too heavy for her shirt, so he has to go first. And they jump off and land, and a zombie falls into the shaft, so as quickly as they can, they open up the ceiling panel and get into the elevator and onto the first floor. and they start running towards the exit when she thinks, I've never seen him scared before, and for some reason all I want to do is be the one who makes him feel fearless. Girl, you love him, let's be for real. That's cute though, but sad, because now he's bit. They get outside and they see JJ and Greg with a gurney and a laundry canvas cart piled high with food and supplies, and they're trying to load it into the truck when a pack of biters break through the exit doors. So they just throw the whole gurney in the truck, get in, start the engine, and Casey and Blake narrowly make it to the truck before the biters all get to them. Craig asks what the hell they were doing since Casey's just in a sports bra now, and he teases them, but then notices Blake is super quiet and asks what's wrong. Blake is still like in shock and is staring blankly, so Casey answers that he was bit, and everyone goes quiet. And then Blake opens his door and tries to hurl himself out of the moving truck.
What the hell?
So Casey has to jerk him back, and she tries to tell him he has a chance, and she gets him fully back into the car. I'm breathless and annoyed. What the hell was that? What? He slowly looks at me with narrowed eyes. You want me dead anyway? Not like this, I don't. Without a thought, he lunges at the door again, propelling it open.
Don't go.
Jesus fucking Christ, JJ yells. I grip his shoulder and pull back, drawing him into a seat. I'm not doing this again, so I climb on top of him, straddling my legs around his waist, while Greg tugs the door closed and lets out an exasperated sigh. Throwing my arms around Blake, I hold him tight and bury my face between his neck and shoulder. If you jump, then I'm coming with you, I whisper into his ear. He doesn't say anything. All I can hear are his labored breaths and his pounding heart. Get a room, Greg quips from the front seat, pretending to dry heave. Shut up, Greg. I'm trying to make sure Blake doesn't kill himself. Yeah, okay. I tune everything out except Blake, paying close attention to how his body responds. His heart rate randomly increases. It could be a symptom of the virus. His skin feels hot against my cheek, another possible symptom. However, the hard bulge pressing into my crotch is definitely not from the virus. Bro can get horny even when he's trying to kill himself. Tears prickle in my eyes and I shut them tight, squeezing them away. All I wanted was Blake out of my life, but now that it's a possibility, I don't want it anymore, at least not like this, not this way. As we drive, the tension in Blake's body starts to ease. He practically melts into me, his muscles relaxing and his head dropping onto my shoulder. Are you good now? I whispered, just loud enough for him to hear. I think so, he says. You're not gonna jump? His head slightly shakes against mine. No. Promise? Yeah. She asks him what happened back there, and he says he doesn't know, but thank you for bringing me back. And they pull up to the dad's property, but they see a plume of black smoke and a vehicle that they don't recognize at the front gate, and a body lying in the road. And then we're on to chapter 26. They run to the unfamiliar truck and they see a large rug thrown over the top of the barbed wire fence to make it climbable. And the body isn't a biter, but it's also no one that they know. Smoke is coming from Casey's truck, and behind the truck is 3 more bodies that are riddled with bullet holes. They're also not anyone Casey knows, and from the way they look and smell, she knows they are burners. Uncle Jimmy then comes running towards them with the fire extinguisher and takes the fire out. And then her dad joins and explains that 45 minutes after they left, they showed up and him and Uncle Jimmy shot them before they could make it to the dummy house. Casey explains that she calls people like this burners and that they're all over Chicago. And for a while she thought they were infected too because of how violent they were, but she realized they're just evil. Blake and Greg say they've never met anyone like that before, not even on their runs, but Casey explains that the big cities are probably picked over, and with winter coming, people are probably leaving to the south and looking for empty houses. And her dad adds that they must have been watching the place since they conveniently hit not long after the 4 of them left. So the first thing they have to do is fortify the fence, not to keep just spiders out, but also burners. Dale asks how the run went, and they say they got the insulin, but he's confused because they all look super upset, and Blake steps forward and shows him the bite. There was a biter in one of the rooms I missed. Casey and I were making our exit, and it lunged at her. There was no time to react, so I pushed her out of the way, and then this happened. He flicked his head at the wound and gives me a fleeting look. I squint but quickly relax my eyes so no one notices. Blake's lying about what happened, and I don't know why, but I decide not to say anything for now. The excuses kind of blaming her, but sure. Anyway, Blake tries to reassure Dale that he'll be fine since, according to Casey, he has a 66% chance of surviving. And then he starts to head towards the holding cells, but Casey tells him he still has 20 plus hours before there's even a chance he could turn into a gnome. And her dad adds that he should clean up, have a nice meal, and head there at night. And he agrees, but first helps with the cleanup of the burners, who they are going to burn, because as Dale says, he drops this hard line. They wanted to see the world burn. Well, they can be the kindling. Dad punctuates his hatred for them by spitting at the corpse. And we're in chapter 27. They're eating bacon, egg, and cheese toast, which is a treat apparently, since it may be Blake's last breakfast. Casey is his guard, so she gets in on the treats too. And Casey is spouting off about how Elaine is spoiling him with all these decadent meals since he's been down there. And Blake says, I'm glad you are enjoying yourself at my expense. Or maybe you're hoping I turn into one of those monsters and you just want to be here for the show. She jokes back that she just wants him to lose his memory so he will forget how much of an asshole he is. He says, looks like she only has to wait about 20 more minutes to see if her wish comes true, but she notices how worried he looks and her smile fades. Are you scared? I ask in a serious tone. I know I am, but I don't say that part out loud. I can tell by his expression that he wants to answer no. He wants to play tough and act like this is nothing compared to what he's been through in his life, but not even he can fake it through the gravity of what might happen next. Yeah, he says above a whisper like he doesn't want me to hear it. Don't be. I'm sure you'll be fine. Why is that? Because only the good die young, so you're gonna live forever. He stares at me, his face is unmoving. He starts to lightly cough, holding it in his throat. Soon the coughing breaks free. His mouth opens and he erupts into a full, deep laugh as he takes some comfort in my wit. As much as she is joking, she does hope that he has the same outcome that she did. And Blake opens up to her that he froze at the hospital because he knew that biter that bit him. His name was Grant, and they were in the SEALs together. They were close, and they had saved each other multiple times in the SEALs. Grant was in town visiting. We'd gone out drinking to blow off some steam. The next day, he was feeling like shit. I chalked it up to him being hungover since I wasn't much better off myself. I told him to just take it easy, pound some fluids, and I'd get us something nice and greasy to soak up the aftermath of the booze. But his hangover wouldn't go away, even into the next day, and then things started getting really weird. His memory was starting to go to shit, and I don't mean like he was blackout the night before, which he was, and couldn't remember how he got home, but I mean he couldn't remember my name or his. I panicked and I took him to the hospital. That was the right move, I say. Yeah, he turns to the far wall of the cell, his back facing me. Well, maybe not. Blake pounds his fist against the cinder block, holding it there. I can see his arm beginning to shake like he's trying to push right through it, letting free the guilt trapped inside him. I was waiting in the lobby. The doctors said they needed to run some tests, but something was off. Nurses and doctors started rushing in and out. At first, they just seemed hurried and busy, but then their urgency morphed into fear, and I knew something big was going down. That's when I saw my first one. A patient stumbled out of the double doors covered in blood, and he looked. Blake turns to me, shaking his head. His gaze falls to the ground, searching for a description for a thing that doesn't exist. I'd never seen anything like it. Seconds later, the hospital erupted in chaos. There were screams all around me, people running for exits, some bloodied, some still untouched. More and more of those things came pouring out from where my friend had been taken. I figured he was dead. Blake walks to his cell door, taking my hands in his. It wasn't until the other night at dinner, when you told us about the different outcomes, that I realized if I had known better, I could have saved him. A new torrent of tears begins to stream down his face as he squeezes my hands. His grip is actually too much, sending pain shooting up my arms, but I am more than happy to endure it in the moment. It all makes sense now. That's why he was so upset with me, why he stormed off during dinner. He went from thinking he had left his dead friend to thinking he might have left someone who had a chance. That's why I didn't want to believe you, because believing you meant that I was coward and selfish and evil in a way I couldn't bear to deal with. It meant that the slightest inkling of danger, I only cared about me. It meant that I left my friend behind. I wouldn't even be standing here if it weren't for him. I'd be lying dead in a compound over in Syria, rotting in the sand with my head cut off or my legs blown halfway across the country. When danger came screaming toward us and stuck itself between Grant and me, he looked it head on and chose my life. When the same happens in that hospital, I ran. I squeeze his hands, guiding him up, hoping that his eyes will follow, and they do. You didn't know. You couldn't possibly have known. And Casey tells him she did the same thing, that when her patient started turning, she ran and she never looked back. And she would have been dead if she didn't run. She's lucky she escaped just a bite. And then he holds his bite mark up to hers because twinsies, right? And he says he still isn't proud of what he did. And she says he doesn't have to be, but he has to give himself grace because they cannot change what happened. And she tells him there's 5 minutes left till they know if he's going to be a gnome or not. And he asks her to stay with him. While they're waiting, Casey realizes that he said his friend lost his memories, so that means he was a gnome. But he was a biter when he saw him at the hospital. I saw patients turn into gnomes, and I saw patients turn into biters, but the biters weren't gnomes, or vice versa. What's your point? We know that both things can happen. Right, but what if when a gnome is bit, they turn into a biter, no matter what? Like, the additional infection instantly overloads the system and deteriorates whatever's left, devolving them even further. I stop pacing, letting the idea settle in. Have you ever seen that happen before? No. Anytime I would see a gnome get attacked in the city, it was always by multiple biters at once. They would be ripped apart and eaten on the spot, so they never had a chance to turn. A light bulb goes off in my head. The herd of biters that came and attacked the compound, it never made any sense to me. That many turning into biters? It's statistically impossible. The bus, I yell out. What about the bus? Blake isn't following, and I can tell my ramblings are more confusing than they are helpful. If the bus had been full of regular people and someone turned, the biter would have just attacked as many as it possibly could while the others fled. It would be days before the survivors turned, and they'd be scattered all over the place. But, I began pacing again, if the bus were attacked by multiple biters, it'd be just as chaotic with people fleeing and dying. Still impossible, unless I run to the cell and grip the bars, pressing my face right between the two of them. What if that bus was full of gnomes and only one biter? The gnomes would be so confused by the attack, they'd be trying to flee, toppling over one another, especially if the bus door was locked. Based on what happened to your friend, all the gnomes would turn into biters. Blake tilts his head. But how would all the gnomes get on the bus, and who was driving? Someone must have been transporting them on purpose, and something went very wrong. Who would want a bunch of random gnomes? Someone who wants bait, or free labor, or an army? The realities that they haven't seen out here are astounding, a mixture of a curse and a blessing. On the one hand, they haven't witnessed gnomes being used as slaves for labor and personal enjoyment, or prodded around to lure others out. That also means they aren't prepared. But trouble is coming whether we like it or not. I can feel it in my bones. But she's pulled away from this thought when she looks over at Blake and he's sweating. And he says he's fine, he just has a headache. She grabs his hand through the bars and he says thank you. She asks him what his best memory is and he asks why, unsure whether this is a genuine question or if she's going to tease him. And she says in case he loses them. Then she can remind him of his best one. He says that's easy, it's you. Oh. She says she didn't realize there was a fourth outcome from the infection, growing new organs, since he just seemed to have grown a heart. He says, come on, he already had a heart and she better remind him of his memory if he forgets. And she says she will. And he asks who he is and where he is, and she starts tearing up and starts saying sorry to him repeatedly. But of course, he's joking, is not really turning into a gnome. He erupts on the floor in laughter, and she grabs a hash brown from her breakfast and chucks it at him. By the way, Pearson, I accept your apology. He's still beaming, tickled with joy at his prank. I squeeze my eyes tight, shaking my head in tiny tremors. I wasn't apologizing to you for anything. I was apologizing for your situation. That's not how I took it. He relaxes into a smug state of bliss, as if every word of this exchange is a drop of honey hitting his tongue. Whatever, I turn on my heel and head for the door, no longer feeling the need to watch over him, at least for now. Where are you going? He calls out, the coolness of his voice now replaced with a mix of genuine curiosity and concern that his plaything is leaving early. To inform everyone that you're not a gnome, but that you are, in fact, still an asshole.
Was the joke that bad?
And we are in chapter 28. She gives everyone the good news that he is a gnome, but that they still have to wait another 12 hours to make sure he doesn't turn into a biter. And she checks on Elaine, who is so thankful for the insulin for Casey. Saving Elaine's life feels restorative in a way since she wasn't able to save her mother's. Plus, she gets to return the favor to Elaine, who had saved her life. So it's all very full circle and gives her some closure since her mother had passed. But then her dad says they need to get to work, and Helen, who Casey hasn't seen since her husband died, asks if more people like the ones from yesterday will show up. Casey explains that it isn't a question of if they will show up, it's a question of when. And then Greg says he has an announcement. Molly, he says, turning to face her. She's seated in the sofa chair wearing her scalp, purposefully looking away from him. I know you've heard some rumors recently from gossipers. Greg shoots a glare in my direction. About me thinking you're only a one-night stand. And I'll admit, I did think that, but only because I was scared. Scared to love someone and scared to let someone into my heart. He places a hand against his chest. Yesterday, when Blake was savagely bit, I had an epiphany about us. I wasn't scared to love you, Molly. I was scared to lose you. Molly slowly turns her head, his words pulling her to meet his gaze. She's still wearing the scowl, but it's fading ever so slightly as her eyes begin to develop a sheen. And I realize I'd rather be full of fear with you by my side than the bravest man in the whole world without you. You're not my one-night stand. Greg plants one knee on the floor. His hands disappear into the pocket of his jeans, re-emerging a moment later with a massive diamond ring. Pinched between his thumb and finger, he extends it to her. Molly Ronan, will you be my forever nightstand? Aunt Julie gasps while Tessa and I try to stifle our laughter. JJ doesn't look impressed, but he grins. Most everyone else is shocked by this odd and very sudden declaration of love. There's no way she says yes to that, Tessa whispers. Absolutely not, I whisper back. Molly leaps from her chair, jumping into Greg's arms. Yes, 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 1,000 times yes, she squeals. He lifts her off the floor, planting kisses on her cheeks and neck. The room erupts into a slow, confused clap as Greg sets her back down and slides the diamond ring, which looks a size too big, onto her slender finger. She admires it for a moment before kissing him. His hands run up and down her body. Hers do the same to his as they suck face, moaning through their sloppy, wet kisses. Oh God, I say, averting my eyes. Gross, Tessa adds. Greg, that's enough, Aunt Julie yells. The newly engaged couple separates from one another, panting and out of breath from their makeout session. Sorry, Mom, I can't help myself around my fiancé, Greg says, extending the pronunciation of the word as he double raises his brows at Molly. Oh my God, I'm a fiancé, she squeals with excitement. Aunt Julie and Uncle Jimmy peel themselves from their seats to congratulate Greg and Molly. And you're my family, Molly says as she hugs my aunt and uncle. She and Greg continue making the rounds, embracing each and every person. Congrats, I say when Greg reaches me. Thanks, I would have never happened without you, cuz, he says, patting me on the back. I'm not taking responsibility for this. Where the hell did you get that rock, Greg? Tessa chimes in. Her eyes keep darting to Molly's hand and what has to be a 3-carat diamond on her finger. The light seeping through the window catches it, making it glint. Found it on a doctor's corpse at the hospital after I vomited. Couldn't let it go to waste. Shocked, my mouth parts, but it shouldn't because nothing Greg does should surprise me. That's disgusting is all I could say. Honestly, though, is it? Was anyone going to use the ring? No, Casey, it's love. He tilts his head and smirks, and honestly, it felt meant to be. Kismet, as I say. When I was in that hospital, I couldn't stop thinking about Molly. Everything reminded me of her. Really, I arch a brow. We're talking about the same hospital. The one full of dead, decaying, maggot-covered bodies and brain-eating biters. That's right, he nods. Everything reminded me of her. That annoying generator noise. Molly. The squeaky wheel on the gurney JJ and I snagged. Molly. The flickering lights in the cafeteria that gave me a splitting headache. Molly. So when I saw that ring, I was like, that's for Molly. Wow, Tessa says, trying to contain her laughter. That's really special. I thought so too. Thanks, Tessa. Greg doesn't pick up on her sarcasm. You know what? Hey, maybe they are both perfect for each other. I'm happy for them, you know? Find love where you can at the end of the world. And we go into chapter 29. Back down in the basement, Blake wakes Casey up asking if she slept down there. She says yeah, she figured he wouldn't want to be alone. He says she didn't have to do that. She could have had the room all to herself, even pushed the beds together to have one mega bed. She says it wouldn't have been the same without him, as in miserable. Except she knows they are both joking to put off the elephant in the room. It's less than 10 minutes until they know Blake's fate. And Casey warns him that if he pretends to turn into a biter, she will shoot him in the face, no hesitation. Blake questions her, thinking she has the stones to just shoot him. How do you think I got so good with my throwing stars? Blake cocks his head to the side, waiting for my answer. I picture your face on the target, that's why I never miss. He can't help but smile. Wow, all those years of practice, and you were thinking of me the whole time. He cups his hands together, tucking them under his chin, batting his eyelashes. Thinking of killing you, yes. My voice is stern, not letting his charm get the upper hand. Still counts, he shrugs slightly. I was in your thoughts. Oh, yeah. Rent free. Then things get serious when she notices how bad he's holding up. He's sweating bullets. And he focuses on her to ignore what is going on inside of him and tells her that she looks worried. She is very worried, but tries to put on a brave face and tells him she isn't because he's going to be okay. He doesn't buy it, but he starts to say that in case he turns, he wants her to know how sorry he is for everything. She says it's fine. And I'm gonna read this whole next section. It's kind of a lot, but it's what we've been waiting for, girlies. He pulls away again. No, it's not. I need you to know that I never wanted to be your monster. I was just so angry at the world, and I took it out on you. After my mom passed, he pauses, glancing up at the ceiling like he's trying to see her up there. After my mom passed, my dad turned to alcohol, and the alcohol made him turn to me, but not in a loving way. There was nothing loving about him when he was drinking. It made him cruel and violent and angry. He was my monster, and then, like these goddamn biters, he turned me into one too. Tears trickle down his cheeks, and he hangs his head, wiping them away with his t-shirt. At one point, the summer after junior year, he turned back into my dad, the man I knew before my mom passed. He got sober, and so did I, in a way. I didn't have that anger and resentment inside my body poisoning me anymore. When I started senior year, I was happy, so there was nothing to take out on anyone. I put down my swords and I got to know you. The more I got to know you, the more I realized I didn't hate you at all. Yes, you did, Blake. I say matter of factly. I get you want to apologize, but let's not rewrite history. I'm not rewriting it, Casey. I'm telling you the side you never knew about. I give a crooked look. What didn't I know? The night of the party, he says, tilting his head, I got a call from the sheriff. My dad had been picked up for a DUI. He relapsed, and I knew right then and there that everything was going to go back to the way it was. He'd be my monster again, and I would inevitably be yours. But I couldn't have you close to me because I needed to protect you from him and from me, especially since I had fallen for you. You never fell for me, Blake. Tears start to build, and I take a couple of quick deep breaths, holding them in. His hands grip the bar of the cell, and he bobs his head up and down, signaling that it's the truth. Yes, I did, and that's why I had to push you away. I needed you to hate me so that you'd stay away from me for good, because I didn't trust myself to stay away from you. I believe what he's saying, but I hate him for making me love him, and I hate him even more for making me hate him. We are basically kids, and I'm sure he had the best of intentions, even though I don't agree with them. But what he endured between the loss of his mom and his father's downward spiral, I can't imagine. I understand the pain of watching a parent struggle with the loss of the person they loved most in the world. I witnessed my own father swallow his sorrow and put on a brave face for me, knowing that I was grieving too. His grief was masked by a hyperfixation on prepping for the worst case scenario, the end of the world. Despite hating what my childhood became after my mom passed, I can't imagine my dad not having been there to protect me, guide me, and love me, the only way he knew how. I want to forgive Blake and absolve him of his guilt. If I were on the outside looking in, I would. It would be easy to rationalize his actions with his circumstances, to see and understand exactly how it all played out. But I'm not on the outside, I'm in here with him. My lip trembles. You shouldn't have done that, Blake. Done what? Made me hate you. Why? He asks. Blake stares at me with so much intensity, it feels like he could burst right through the steel bar separating us. Because you succeeded. He lowers his head and turns away from me. It's the one thing I wish I would have failed at. Blake says, his shoulders slumping forward. He rubs it at his face like he's trying to wake himself up from a bad dream. I fall silent, letting the words hang heavy in the air. Although I'm standing still, my heart starts to pound, beating faster and faster like it could shoot right out of my chest, splat onto the concrete floor for Blake to see. It's as though it's trying to speak louder than my brain, trying to be the voice inside me that cuts through it all. Well, you're failing now, I say softly. His breath hitches in the air in the room, but all but evaporates. The moment feels frozen, like an entity in the sky hit pause on a remote, stretching out time to allow it to process what's happening. The air slowly returns, passing through Blake's nose via a sniffle. He turns and stands taller, as though a burden has been lifted from his shoulders, making him lighten. Blake, I whisper, not wanting to ruin whatever this is. Maybe it's a preamble, or maybe it's closure. It may even be both. If my words are small and meek enough, perhaps I can avoid having this moment come crashing down on us. I don't hate you anymore. He's unable to hide the growing smile spreading across his face. So, does that mean you like me? Let's not get ahead of ourselves, I say with a laugh. He grins, unable to take his eyes off of me until reality dawns on him. The ticking countdown. Blake clears his throat, his face turning serious. How much time is left? He asks before twisting his mouth to one side. Oh, you're in the clear, I say nonchalantly, as if sharing the weather forecast with him. What? The word comes out breathy and quick. Having left his mouth faster than his lips and tongue had time to form a thought, he rushes to the cell door, seizing the bars like a caged animal ready to burst. Are you serious? Yep, I nod. Since when? I glance down at the watch, pretending like I'm calculating the delta of time. About 20 minutes, give or take, I smirk. So I didn't need to confess any of that. Nope, you could have kept all that to yourself, I say, stretching my arms up over my head. I clasped my hands together as I arched my back, cracking my sternum. I let out a sigh of relief at the sound of my vertebrae crunching. The confused look on his face tells me he's rapidly contemplating his decision, balancing the raw vulnerability with the catharsis of the lessened guilt. I reach into my pocket and retrieve the metal key to Blake's cell. Inserting it into the keyhole, I pause and lock eyes with him. So, Blake, I guess there's just one last thing I want to know. What's that? Are you still my monster? A small grin starts to grow at the edges of his mouth, barely curling his lips, not even lifting his cheeks high enough to squeeze against his eyes. Always, he says. I give the key a heavy twist and pull open the cell door, gazing up at him through my lashes. He's not the same man who went into that cell, at least not to me. Blake's eyes bounce rapidly from side to side, scanning my face, searching for a shared feeling that he knows was there once before. I know it's there too, and I don't think it ever left. It was just camouflaged with hate and resentment. The rush of joy and anticipation, mixed with a new level of understanding, lures his lips to mine like a magnet that finally found its counterpart. We breathe in one another as we kiss, like we could suck the life out of each other, but even then it feels like we'd have another one to live. I unlock our lips, guiding my cheek along his, and then biting the bottom of his earlobe. He moans and his hands firmly cup my ass. I want you, I whisper, hot, heavy breath in his ear. It's true, I want nothing more in this moment than for Blake to take me. Even if the whole world were burning around me, I would stand in that fire and welcome the scalding heat if this was the last pleasure I felt. I bring my lips back to his, parting my mouth as our tongues pick up right where they left off, swirling in a vortex of anticipated escalation. I thought you told me never to touch you again. A couple of words at a time sneak out between the less than 1 second intervals we're able to stay apart. Forget what I said. I grab a shirt, twisting the fabric in my hands, and pull him even tighter into my body. Touch me everywhere, Blake. I say when my mouth is free to speak the things my heart had been screaming. For a brief moment, everything stands still. Our heavy breathing is the only sound in the room, our shoulders rising and falling in slow motion. And then in a flash, he's pulling my shirt up over my head, unable to wait any longer. We've waited long enough. Our mouths collide, and our labored breaths are the soundtrack that plays as he unclasps my bra, letting it fall to the floor. As I melt into him, I can't help but be frustrated with Blake for messing everything up back in high school. If he had just leaned on me rather than push me away, we could have had this moment long ago, and then 1,000 more of them. Oh, guys, that was a lot.
And I'm betting there's even more, which adds up to an absolute assload.
And then they do it in the cell, and I won't go into detail because it's YouTube, right? But it's a good scene, honestly. And we get this cute last line before the next chapter. Right now, it doesn't feel like the world ended because mine is lying in my arms. Oh, so they're gonna be good from now on, right? Right? Chapter 30. Tessa is looking for Casey and comes down to the basement and sees them on the cell floor together. After the act, luckily. She exclaims, "You're sleeping with the enemy?" and asks how this happened when she was supposed to be on Monster Watch. Casey shushes her, not wanting anyone else to come down and see them in this compromising position. And Tessa says sorry, she wasn't expecting this. Or maybe she was, actually. I mean, I know how it appears. It looks like I was expecting this or perhaps planning for it because I told everyone to stay away. I told them to wait for either me or both me and Blake to come up after we found out whether he turned. He didn't want anyone down here if when he changed, including me, but I couldn't do that. Stay away, that is. When he fell asleep, I didn't leave and I made myself a little makeshift bed so I'd be down here in the wee hours of the morning to ensure he didn't have to face the unknown alone. The bed was for sleeping, not sex, but apparently it had a dual purpose. Tessa says, "Well, it's obvious you liked Blake," which Casey argues and Blake says she did a little. And from the glimpse I got of Blake's package, I assume you might love him now? Do you? Blake cheekily smiles. He's enjoying this far too much. Oh my god, both of you stop. I lean forward, covering my face with my hands in an attempt to hide from their questions. With Tessa still there, Blake starts grazing Casey's inner thigh under the sheet, which, does something to her. So she has to push him off, and Tessa asks why she's smiling like that. And Tessa teases that she told everyone not to come down here because the hookup was planned. But then Tessa drops the bomb that someone is here to see her fiance. Yeah, Blake goes rigid since, as far as I recall, he doesn't even know about Nate's existence. So, yeah, great. They're finally together, and now little bitch boy is here to ruin things. Yeah, Tessa nods, but he insists we call him Dr. Warner. Her eyes practically roll. You have a fiance? Blake asks, the question coming out strained. I force myself to meet his gaze, staring at him with my mouth slightly parted. I try to explain, but the words are tangled up in my throat. I don't know how to answer him. The longer I sit here not explaining, not answering, the more his face changes from a look of disbelief into one of betrayal and hurt. I thought you told me you two broke up, Tessa cuts in, coming to my aid. My eyes start back and forth between the two of them. Yeah, we did, in a way, break up. Blake asks what she means, but she doesn't know what to tell him. I can't tell them Nate ditched me in the city and almost got me killed because he's here now, and actually, now that I think about it, he wouldn't come here if he had intentionally left me behind, right? Did I misinterpret his actions? I remember back to the moments before Nate fled out of the apartment. I was tied up with one burner while another was regaining his footing. Nate had scanned his surroundings, and I remember thinking he was coming up with a plan to get us out of there. Maybe he took off because he was trying to draw the burners away from me, but they didn't go after him. Maybe he ran into more trouble. Maybe he tried to get his Porsche ready for us to flee, but it was stolen by other burners. Nate and I were together for years and were planning to get married. You don't just run away from that the first sign of trouble. We got separated back in the city, I say, and I thought he was long gone or dead. Underneath the sheet, Blake shuffles on his boxer briefs and then stands, pulling on a pair of jeans and a long t-shirt. I glance up at him, waiting for a reaction, but he doesn't give me one. He leaves the cell and starts off toward the door, Tessa awkwardly stepping aside, letting him pass by. Where are you going? I call out. Blake pauses and briefly glances back at me, his mouth half grimacing and half smirking. To meet your stupid fiance. And we go to chapter 31, where Tessa and Casey are both sprinting after Blake. Everyone is standing there with Nate, and Casey can see that he looks filthy and covered in bruises, and his hair is cut short, which is weird because his hair has always been his prized possession. I notice Dad's lips are moving as he gestures to Blake and then to Nate, clearly introducing them. Nate, none the wiser, extends a hand. If he knew what Blake did to me with that hand this morning, he'd for sure be throwing a fist instead. A jolt of electricity flashes through my body just thinking about it. I shake away the thought and blow out a gust of air, readying myself to face this head on. Tessa slaps a hand on my shoulder, startling me. You might want to go and run interference before Blake and Nate get to talking about their common interests. You know, things or people they like to do. She raises a brow, grinning. Oh god. I don't know, it kind of seems like she likes being the center of a love triangle a little bit. But Blake stares at her as she approaches, looking like he's upset but doesn't want to be. And Nate notices him looking and turns around and sees Casey and sprints towards her, looking her in a hug. She's staring at Blake the whole time. She doesn't tell Nate she missed him because she honestly didn't. Considering he ditched her, she didn't think about him once. But now she's doubting herself as if there's any other explanation. She tells him that he ditched her and he says he didn't and went through hell trying to get to her. And he definitely looks like he went through hell. But you left me and then I couldn't find you, I say, trying to maintain my strength. When I came back, you were gone. I even went up to the apartment to check, and then I stayed in the area for days looking for you until I remembered your truck. I didn't know where it was parked, but I figured you had to have made it to it. And the only place you'd go outside the city was here. Nate brushes a finger across my cheek. When I was 100% certain you weren't in Chicago anymore, I came looking for you, praying, wishing, hoping you would be here. He folds his lips in, blinking several times. And you were. Nate lets his head fall forward momentarily before lifting it. All the horrible things I went through in order to get to you. He looks at me with a fixed gaze, a sheen coating his eyes. I would do them all again because I love you so much, Casey. Yeah, likely fucking story, right, guys? But now she feels guilty for being the one to abandon him, technically. But I don't get if he had the car, why it took him weeks to catch up to her. He says he stayed around for a few days, but weeks? Like, what's going on? Not adding up for me. Nate leans in and plants a hard kiss on my lips, his hands raking through my hair. My heart feels unsteady, as though it doesn't know where it belongs. It's breaking and mending at the same time. It breaks for Blake, but part of it feels like it's being restored, healed. I kiss Nate back, forcing pressure and movement through my lips, only enough for him not to ask any questions about what I've been up to. Nate, Blake calls out. Startled, I pull away and wipe at my mouth. My dad and Blake approach, stopping a few feet from us. Nate turns to face him, thrusting his jaw forward. It's Dr. Warner. Right, Blake says, curling his upper lip. We should talk sleeping arrangements since it appears you'll be staying. I hate that he keeps insisting, and he will keep insisting that everyone calls him Dr. Warner. Like, that's the biggest asshole sign there is. I hate this man. Her dad suggests that Blake moves into the dummy house, but Blake says he's perfectly fine staying in Casey's room. And her dad's like, I'm trying to give them some privacy. But Casey intervenes to be like, well, Blake is healing. He needs to be around people in case, anything else happens. We don't fully know this illness. Something else could happen. Really, she just wants him in the room. She doesn't want to hurt either of them, but she knows she will have to. She just has to regroup first, which is honestly valid. Like, that's a lot thrown at her at once. She literally just made up with Blake, and now her fiance shows up out of nowhere. I get it. But them all being roomies? I don't know about that one, girl. Casey takes Nate to the room, who immediately starts kissing her, but all she can think about is Blake. And girl, I think that's your answer. If I had known Nate never intended to ditch me, that he only ran to lure their burners away so I could escape, then Blake and I would never have happened. But I didn't. I didn't realize he was out there risking his life trying to get here to me. Knowing that changes everything. I mean, it has to. We were engaged. We had planned to spend forever together. We were working so hard to build a life that we would one day be able to live in. Honestly, it's a miracle Nate made it to me, and it feels weird to throw that away, but for some reason I can't go right back to the way things were with Nate. I needed time to get over Blake before I can be with my fiance again. I just can't tell Nate that's the reason I'm pushing him away. Girl, if you need to get over Blake, maybe Nate's not the one. I think that's pretty clear. But she notices how much Nate smells and nearly gags, uses this as an excuse to not kiss him or hook up with him. She lends him some of her dad's clothes and points him towards the bathroom. He asks her to join him, but she says they are not supposed to waste water. So he says maybe when he gets back then. Girl, better make yourself scarce because this man is trying to jump your bones. But as soon as he leaves, she looks at Blake's bed and imagines her and Blake in it. Girl, wake up. The signs are all there. You want to be with Blake, just be with Blake. Please. But apparently, the past 2 years with Nate, sometimes Blake would cross her mind, but she thinks it was out of spite. No, girl, it was because you still cared. Somehow, the hours I spent loving Blake are just as significant as the years I spent loving Nate. Then again, maybe that's all this is supposed to be, powerful and fleeting, a reminder that love doesn't have to be forever to be real. She is in denial. This is the one thing I will say about the book. Her choices annoy the fuck out of me, but I guess we wouldn't really have much of a plot without them. I don't know. This girl can really hold a grudge, though. That's what I'm learning. Apparently, not at Nate, though. For some reason, Blake comes into the room next and kisses her. So they all just kind of swap saliva. It's just kind of gross considering how gross Nate looked and smelled. She gets lost in the kiss, saying it's the kind of kiss you thank God for even if you don't believe he exists. But she says she can't, and she draws away from the kiss. He asks if that is supposed to mean they're done, and she hits him with, "Did we ever really start?" He challenges her to tell him she doesn't love him, which she obviously can't do, and he kisses her again and says he wants her so bad, but she breaks off again and asks him to stop making it so hard. If it's hard for you to tell me this is over, then you know it's not the right decision. I don't know that, and neither do you. He takes a step toward me, grazing a finger across my cheek. Without you, my world ends. The world already ended, Blake. Only for a little bit until you came back into it. Choose him. I've never heard Nate say anything romantic like this. So she starts crying, and the door opens. They split apart, and Blake covers it up by saying training starts in 20 minutes. And she turns to find Nate with a towel wrapped around his waist, and he asks what training is. Blake tells him combat training, and everyone has to do it. So we go into chapter 32, where Blake is leading training, and his demeanor's off. He's acting like he's in front of a group of people he's never met before. And Blake says they will all pair up and tells Nate that since this is his first time, he'll be with him. Casey, of course, thinks Blake is gonna beat his ass, but Blake doesn't catch the warning look she gives him. Sure, Blake. Nate weaves his way to the front. And it's Dr. Warner, by the way. A large smile spreads across Blake's face as he drops a heavy hand onto Nate's shoulder. That's good, because you might need a doctor after this. The group giggles to themselves, though Nate appears confused, unsure whether Blake's just joking around or serious. He raises his shoulders and puffs out his chest, but even all inflated, he's still smaller than Blake. The rest of them pair up. Casey's with Tessa, of course, and Blake says to start. Take your opponent to the ground. Keep it clean, but don't go too easy. Elaine, Meredith, Helen, and Aunt Julie all choose to sit this one out. And they start, and Tessa whispers to her that I think Mr. Enemy with Benefits is going to kill your fiance, Tessa whispers. I know, and then I'm going to kill him. Blake doesn't move towards Nate, forcing Nate to eventually make the run at him, which Blake sidesteps, and Nate crashes face first into the dirt. And the next time he tries to attack, Blake ends up flipping him in the air, causing Nate to end up on his back with the wind knocked out of him. Tessa slaps me lightly on the cheek, startling me. What? How are you in a love triangle during an apocalypse? I can't even find a boyfriend and you have two men. I don't have two men, and you had a boyfriend, but you killed him, remember? Oh yeah, she says. But it looks like we're both gonna have dead partners if those two keep fighting. Should I stop it? Not yet. It's kinda hot, Tessa laughs. I told you she likes having two men fight over her. She likes being in a love triangle. But Casey tells Tessa she thinks that he's trying to kill Nate so that she will be with him since he told her this morning that he wants to be with her. This whole time, Blake is kicking his ass and Nate yells, Uncle, Uncle. And Blake lets him go and turns to Casey with a shit-eating grin, but she shakes her head, not impressed with his macho behavior. And Nate's dumbass uses this moment to charge up Blake again and does get him pinned to the ground. Blake whips his legs up in an X over Nate's chest, the same as he did to me when we first sparred, and sends him smashing backward into the ground. But unlike me, he doesn't stop there. He stands and grabs Nate's legs, lifting them high into the air as he hooks Nate's knees over his shoulders, grabbing him by the waist and curling his body back upright. It looks like Nate is sitting in a plate-shaped chair. He drives Nate back to the cold hard earth, body slamming him like a stunt from the WWE. When he hits the ground, a loud snap reverberates through all of us, sending a chill down my spine. It's the only noise we hear before a rush of pain screams out of Nate's mouth. Ack, my shoulder! He writhes in agony, pounding the dirt with his good arm. His injured shoulder is rolled up off his collar, dislocated from the joint. Holy shit, Tessa says. I'm already fuming as I race to Nate's side. What the hell, Blake? I glare up at him, and his face briefly changes, his eyes flickering with the same venom that coursed through them all those years ago at the party right before he stabbed me in the heart. Has the venom always been there? Maybe he hasn't changed at all. Maybe he's the same old jerk, and his true self surfaces whenever he doesn't get his way. My heart pounds against my ribcage. Has Blake fooled me again? What? We were just horseplaying. Tessa, hold Nate still on his side and put pressure into him with your knees so he can't shift away from me. She nods and races over to assist. Sorry, Nate, she says, pushing up against him as it winces. It's Dr. Warner. Come on. His words come out breathy and shrieky. Tessa shoves him even harder, annoyed by his response. A slight smirk appears on her face as he grimaces. I snap my fingers in Nate's face to get his attention. You know what I have to do, and you know it's gonna hurt. So she proceeds to snap or pop his shoulder back into place, and then she shoves Blake, asking what his fucking problem is, and Blake claims it was an accident, and she hits him with, yeah, and so were we. Oof! I whisper only loud enough for him to hear me. I don't know why I say it. Actually, I do. I want to hurt him because he thinks it's okay to hurt others, purely for his own enjoyment or to prove himself. His face turns downward, displaying the pain he feels from my words, which cut a little too deep. His green eyes mist over, and he lowers his head. Without another word, Blake walks away, but this time I don't feel bad for him. And we go into chapter 33. Of course, even though she's pissed at Blake, she obviously still has feelings for him. But she thinks maybe she really convinced him that the feelings are gone and maybe this will make getting over him easier. And she's in the shower contemplating this when Blake comes in to apologize. He tells her he's leaving, which makes her whip the shower curtain open, boobs out and everything. And she says, no, you aren't. He says he is. He's on patrol tonight, but he's going to tell everyone tomorrow and then leave the following day. She starts crying and says he doesn't have to, but the water camouflages her tears. I don't even think he knows that she's crying. He says he does. And besides, isn't that what she wanted, for him to get the hell out of here? You know I don't want that. It looks like neither of us are getting what we want then. Blake shrugs. So what, you're just gonna leave? And go where? My eyes plead with him to be reasonable. If he could hear the beating of my own heart, he'd know it was pleading with him too. There's nowhere to go, Blake. Nowhere is better than here. Stop with the melodramatics, I scoff. Why can't we just be friends? Girl, for real? He was just all kind of ways inside of you. Just friends? Sure. I don't want to be your friend. He drops eye contact, staring at his boots. I want to stop his pain, take away his sadness, but that means I'd have to give it to Nate. Am I even making the right choice? Should my loyalty stay with Nate just because we were together before the world ended? Just because I had more time with him? No. I really don't know. I just wish things could be different. So if you can't have me the way you want me, then you don't want me in your life at all. Is that right? He bites down on his lower lip, letting his teeth graze across it. Yeah, I guess it is. That's selfish and petty and stupid, I spit. It just might be, but I can't watch you love someone else. It'd be like watching the world end all over again, and I don't think I'd survive a second doomsday, he says with a small chuckle. His joke doesn't land. It doesn't land at all. I hate you, I say, my lip trembling. Blake stares back at me like he's trying to call my bluff, but I hold strong. Finally, he reaches up with his hand and grabs the top of the shower curtain, sliding it closed and separating us from one another again. Take care, Casey, he says, and then leaves the room, closing the door behind him. Girl, you better not let him leave. Then we go to chapter 34, and she wakes up in her bedroom and she sees Blake's rucksack all packed up and realizes he is actually going to leave. She's super upset, but she can only really blame herself because she chose Nate over Blake. The door creaks open and she smiles, thinking it's Blake coming to tell her he is staying, but her smile fades when she sees it's Nate. He's the one I chose when the world was whole, so he's the one I'll stay with through the end of it. Please, he sucks. Also, it's the end of the world, so fuck your past choices. Now is the time to go after what you really want, since you could be a zombie or a gnome tomorrow. Come on. Nate asks her if she wants to walk to his car with him. He left it a mile up the road, hidden in case he needed to make a quick exit, in case he wasn't accepted. But now that he is staying, he figures he should go get it. My mind immediately is like, this feels like a trap. Don't go with him. He's gonna snatch her up and take her somewhere with a car, but maybe I just have trust issues. Maybe I just don't trust men.
I know what kind of man you are.
Anyway, they walk down the driveway. She looks everywhere for Blake and spots him in a deep hug with her dad, both of them crying. I can't believe it. He's actually leaving. My heart aches and I hate him for doing this to me, to my dad, to all of us. It's also stupid and petty. Where would Blake even go? For someone who's so pragmatic about survival, this is a foolish decision, made from emotion rather than reason. He's risking his own life because he can't stand to see me with Nate. But I bet he's not telling my dad or anyone else that. I wonder what story he's giving them. I rub her neck, watching Blake for as long as I can until we pass by. He doesn't seem to notice, and I glance back once just to be sure, but he doesn't even look at me. At the front gate, Nate pulls a key from his back pocket and inserts it into the padlock, holding the chain in place. He removes it, letting it slink to the ground before repocketing the key. Where did you get that? I ask, pointing to his pocket. Oh, I told one of the older ladies in the kitchen that I needed to pull my car in, and she gave me this key. No. No, 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 no. No, I don't believe him. It's giving scummy. It's giving liar. Let's back up. Don't go with him, girl. But of course she does. Also, what does she expect Blake to do? Stay? He's not Shane in The Walking Dead. He's not just gonna watch you be with your fiance and then try to steal you, and when that doesn't work, murder the fiance. I don't think he's gonna go that route. I just don't. So what do you think's gonna happen? He has to go. But yeah, they get to the car, which is barely hidden with one freaking twig, because apparently covering it in branches would ruin the paint job, he says. This guy is so materialistic even after the end of the world. Leave him. Gets in the car and starts it. And as soon as she gets in, he makes a U-turn before she can even buckle. And what did I freaking say? It's a trap. Where are you going? Did you already get turned around, city boy? The house is back that way. I chuckle, pointing my thumb over my shoulder and waiting for him to stop abruptly to correct his mistake. I know, is all he says, staring straight ahead at the road, his hands gripping the steering wheel. What? Then where are you going? My tone is a mixture of confusion and panic. Nate has no idea what's around this area, so where else could he be driving us to? We're leaving. My eye search his profile, looking for any sign that he's just messing with me, trying to pull my leg before he brings the car to a stop. But there is none. He just continues staring forward, looking like a man on a mission. Nate, turn the car around. My tone is calm yet firm. He ignores me, revving the engine as he increases the car's speed even more, the trees flying by in a blur of green along the sides of the road. Nate, turn the fucking car around right now. I slam my hands into the dashboard, popping open the glove box. No, Casey, there's nothing to go back to. What? What are you talking about? I had to make a deal. Of course, guys. My heart drops into the pit of my stomach, splashing acid all around as the gravity of the situation sinks in. What did you do? They were going to kill me. I had no choice. What did you fucking do? I screamed, causing Nate to recoil into himself. They were going to kill me, Casey, so I made a deal. I told them about your father's compound, that they'd be safe, and that they'd have supplies for years. They said if I showed them where it was and I helped them get inside, then they'd let me and you go. You did what? I'm seeing red right now, and my breaths come out fast and hard. I can't believe him. I can't fucking believe him. I should have known something was off just by the fact that Nate showed up with all his limbs still intact. That's what I'm saying. He's not cut out for an apocalypse, so of course he made a fucking deal to save his own ass. It was the only way. Did you not hear me? They were going to kill me. Where are they? Where are who? He asks. You know who? The fucking burners, the one you made a goddamn deal with? Where are they? I slap at Nate's arms, wanting to take my rage out of him in ways he could never imagine. They're probably heading into the compound as we speak. His voice is soft, delivering the death blow as calmly as he can. Stop the car. Right now. No, we aren't going back. The knuckles on his hands are white from how tightly he's gripping the steering wheel. Yes, we are. I lunge across the center console and grab the steering wheel, trying to turn it hard to the left. Nate steadies it, bringing the car back under control after it drifts briefly in the road. He screams at me to stop, but I don't. I grab for it again, but this time he throws a hard, sharp elbow directly into my eye. Knock it off, Casey. You're gonna kill both of us. My head slams into a window as I'm sent reeling back from the blow. Okay, so he's abusive too. I love that. Searing pain shoots up into my skull and travels down my spine. A massive headache instantly roars its way into existence, clouding my vision. Nate snaps his head back and forth, looking over at me while still keeping his eyes on the road. I'm not sure whether he's checking on me out of concern or checking to make sure I won't attack him. You motherfucker, I lunge across the center console again, but this time not at the steering wheel, at Nate. My fingers are outstretched and curled like a pair of talons, ready to lay waste to the skin on his face. I claw and scratch at his cheek, ear, and eyes, trying to distract him from driving. Ah, Casey, stop it. I can't see. His reflexes kick in and he lets go of the wheel, grabbing at my hands to try to stop me, but I've already abandoned his face and quickly gripped the nail-free steering wheel, whipping it hard to the left. The tires let out a violent squeal, burned rubber instantly filling the cabin with a rotten stench. We shoot across the road like a rocket, onto the shoulder and into the grass. Nate slams on the brakes, but it's too late. The tires lock up on the soft soil, careening us toward a mighty oak tree. The Porsche no longer in anyone's control. The sound of metal crunching and glass shattering are the last things I remember before everything goes black. Chapter 35. She wakes up in the car with a bloody face, but luckily her legs are fine, and the hood of the Porsche is wrapped around a tree, and Nate is passed out on the steering wheel, and she hears a man's voice coming somewhere from the car saying, paging Dr. Warner. Dr. Warner, if you can hear me, you're free to go. We're starting our approach to the compound now. Thanks for leaving the gate open. Enjoy that grill of yours and steer clear. You hear? Because there won't be another deal on the table the next time we run into each other. A deep laugh erupts before static takes over and the line clicks dead. She finds the walkie-talkie underneath the driver's seat and tries it to see if she can get to the stop somehow, but no luck. They don't answer, and she runs back towards the house, but it's pretty fucked up, so it's tough. And she hears Nate call her and turns around to see him against the Porsche, asking where she is going. And then his ankle snaps and he falls down as she tells him she's gonna go save her family, and he says she will die trying. I'd rather die with them today than spend the rest of my life with you. God, you are more useless and stupid than I thought you were. I knew I made the right decision leaving you behind. He cracks a wide smile, revealing blood-stained teeth, relishing in his confession. Piece of shit. I turn my back on Nate and start walking, refusing to give him the satisfaction of my anger. Say hi to your dead dad for me, you fucking bitch, Nate screams. The words reach a part of me I can't ignore, spinning me around. My hand instinctively slips into my holster as I find one of my throwing stars and send it flying through the air right into Nate's shoulder. Ah, he yelps at the steel object lodged in his body, blood trickling down his shirt. His hand goes to it, trying to remove the star, but the pain is far too great for him to pull it out himself. I start to turn and walk away, but stop and face him again, smirking. Oops, don't want to forget that, I say. Sauntering over to Nate, I squat down in front of him and grip the throwing star, giving a small twist before yanking it from his flesh. He screams again, grasping at the wound the second it's free of the blade. Blood pours more freely from the unblocked hole. Thanks for holding on to that for me. I smile and stare into his eyes, and we go into chapter 37. She reaches the compound to see the front gate smashed off its hinges and multiple unfamiliar trucks littering the lawn. One vehicle is on fire, and several bodies litter the lawn too. Screams are piercing the ear as she creeps along the fence line, staying low in the brush as cover. I still can't believe Nate sold us out. If he was worried about the burners killing him, why didn't he just tell us so we could have planned our own attack and beefed up our defenses? I already know the answer, though. Nate is a coward who only thinks about himself. Even if there were a way that he could have saved everyone here without betraying their trust, he wouldn't have cared. So long as numero uno was taken care of. I should have made sure he was dead before I left him on the side of the road, but a slow, painful death is what he deserves. Besides, if he's such a great doctor, then he should be able to patch himself up. I shake Nate from my thoughts and focus on my surroundings. She gets to the edge of the tree line and scouts the area. From the amount of cars and gunshots she heard, she guesses there are at least 15 to 20 burners there. She starts to try to get to the sniper tower, but is yanked back by someone. It's Tessa, who pulls her into a hug, and she sees Molly over her shoulder. They all hug, and Tessa tells her that Greg was up there on watch when the men stormed the property, and she saw 2 men go up there. Molly thinks that he is probably dead, but Casey reassures her that he's probably alive and probably fine. Tessa tells her that they were picking vegetables when they heard gunshots, and a dozen or so men rushed to the front lawn, so they ran into the woods. And Casey tells her this was the right thing to do. It's not like they could have killed them with their garden shears. The men could have killed them, or worse, but now they have the element of surprise, at least. And she tells them that Nate set them up and sold the place out to save his own ass. And Tessa didn't even know about him ditching her in the first place and calls him a slimeball, saying she knew she never liked the guy. Where's Nate now? Molly asks, fear filling her eyes like Nate's some kind of boogeyman who will jump out at any moment. He's either dead or dying. Looks like we both killed our boyfriends, Tessa says with the smallest smile, trying to find humor in the darkest of times. That's when we need it most. It's easy to laugh when you're happy. I smile back and reach for her hand, squeezing it. And then Casey leads the girl through the woods to a secret place that her dad and her had marked off, where they pull off dead logs and vegetation to reveal a big green chest that holds a whole bunch of guns. And we go into chapter 37. They load up with guns, knives, flashbangs, and Tessa with 1 grenade, and they are set to attack. First, they take out anyone patrolling the area, and then they need to take the sniper to tower back. Plan is that Molly will stay up there with Greg, and Tessa will come back with her to the main house. So Casey takes out the first guy they see with a throwing star and gets it back by prying it out of his neck with her knife, which makes Molly barf. And 2 men are guarding the dummy house, and she instructs the girls to shoot them as she takes the one patrolling when he gets to this side of the house, but that will make noise and attract attention, so Tessa suggests that they distract them by throwing a rock through the window. The plan works, and Casey's super proud of her girls, but Molly is trembling and says she's never killed anyone before, and Casey tells her that if they don't kill these guys, they'll kill Greg. And hearing this, Molly starts charging towards the sniper tower and then almost gets her head blown off by a guy shooting from up there.
What in the name of little billy goats are you doing?
Which Casey reprimands her for and tells her that she can't run ahead. They have no idea how many of them there are or where they all are. I rack my brain trying to think of the best way to approach. The point of the tower was a perfect 360 view of the property, precisely so someone couldn't sneak up on it. The only way to make it is a full-on sprint, having the girls provide cover, and even then my odds are low. But with that tower occupied, everyone is at risk. Okay, there's no way to sneak up on him, so I'm just gonna have to make a run for it. Casey, no, you'll get shot, Tessa says, grabbing my shoulder and giving it a shake as though she can work some sense into me. I have to try. If you two can provide cover fire, I might be able to make it. Casey, I want to save Greg more than anything, but I can't let you do this, Molly says, lowering her head. I'm going whether you guys provide cover fire or not. You can either help me or you can let him have free reign on me. It's up to you. I turn back to the corner of the house and lay eyes on the dead burner at my feet. Help me lift him up. I have an idea. The girls look at me with confusion that morphs into disgust as they put their hands on the burner's corpse, his blood-soaked clothes already stiffening in the cool air. Okay, I'm gonna push him out past the house into the line of sight for the shooter. Once he shoots, I'll take off running. You two wait 1 second and then start firing at the sniper tower. If you can hit the guy from here, that'll be amazing. But even so, just keep shooting nice and steady till I make it to the dummy house. Never give him a chance to feel comfortable enough to poke his head out and take another shot. Understood? They both nod reluctantly, still not wanting me to go through with this. The second I'm inside, get back behind your cover. I look to where I can guess the shooter is. X-ray vision of my imagination allows me to paint the grimace of his visage as he squints one eye down his sight. And they start this plan, but halfway through running, she hears the girls run out of bullets and have to reload at the same time, which gives the burner an opening line to start shooting at her. So she zigzags, erratically hoping he's a shit shot. And this works, so the girls can start shooting at him again. It did graze her ear with the bullet, but you know, at least she makes it up towards the tower. 3 stairs from the top, an explosion rings out from my left, wood splintering from the wall across my face. I hit the deck immediately, waiting for another shot to come. He's scared and he's given away his position. I decide to hurl one of my throwing stars into the ceiling, creating a quick, albeit very weak distraction. I plant my foot on one of the stairs and leap forward, turning to my left as I crash onto the tower floor. Lying flat on my side, I raise my pistol and fire wildly at the only figure I can see standing in the room. 2 gunshots ring out in response as the gun clicks empty, and I close my eyes thinking this is it. But the room is silent, the smell of gunpowder hanging heavy in the air. I open my eyes to see the burner lying still, both our bodies on our sides, as we're locked in a staring contest that he couldn't possibly lose. Blood pours out of the holes in his shirt, soaking into the fibers of the floorboards. I can't seem to move, all my energy having been spent on the sprint here and the ensuing firefight. It isn't until I hear Molly scream that I remember why I ran up here in the first place. Greg, footsteps clamber behind me. A hand rolls me onto my back. Are you hurt? Tessa asks. I shake my head. She smiles and reaches for my hand, heaving me onto my feet. Greg is lying on the floor, his hands tied behind his back. He looks to be out cold, the imprint of a rifle butt raised up on his forehead. Molly is in a panic, trying to rouse him. He stirs slightly, moaning out his forced slumber. I cut the ties around his wrists, freeing him. Greg, how are you doing? I ask, while Molly and I help sit him up. Feeling his pulse, I check to see how his eyes are responding to the light in the room. His heart is slow, but rising rapidly. Greg winces, closing his eyes as he touches the raised bump on his forehead. What happened? Looks like you got knocked out cold with the butt of a rifle, I say. Who did it? Was it Blake? I swear to God. He starts to seethe. What? No, we're under attack. The second the final word leaves my mouth, Greg's eyes pop open. Fighting through the pain, he's on his feet in a second, and that's when he sees the burner, bleeding out on the floor a mere 6 feet away from him. What the fuck? Who is that? He points at the corpse. Where's JJ? Where's Mom and Dad? He heads for the door, but I reach out and grab his shirt, heaving him back. Greg, easy. I know this is a lot, but we need you to stay here with Molly. No way, I'm gonna find my family. He pushes me aside, but Tessa jumps in front of the doorframe, blocking his exit. Greg, listen to her. We need you to stay up here. Tessa shoves his chest with both hands, forcing him back a step. He sighs heavily and shakes the fog out of his head. We can't lose this tower again. It was a miracle I even got up here in the first place. You need to stay here, protect the tower, shoot any burners you see, and provide cover fire as needed. Got it? I can see he's struggling, unable to be okay with just staying put while his family's in danger. Please, I add. Molly steps forward and squeezes him as hard as she can, tears running down her cheeks as she tries to crawl inside his body, her affection for Greg wanting nothing more than for them to fuse into one being. Greg, we need to do this for our family. He looks down at her glistening wide eyes, and within the endless depths of the love behind them, he must see the reassurance he needs. He picks Molly up and squeezes her so hard, back cracks a few times. She giggles as Greg gently sets her down. He turns and salutes me. Consider this tower secured and your 6 covered, ma'am. I chuckle, patting him on the shoulder. Thanks, sir. We exchange tight smiles and firm nods, and then Tessa and I take our leave, heading toward the main house, this time with the safety and security of friendly eyes watching from above. And they head towards the house, but a scream cuts from the woods where the small cabins are. 2 gunshots ring out, and the screams magnify. Neither of us needs to see the 2 small bodies lying limp in the grass to know exactly what just happened. Another cry pierces the air before a man yells, a gunshot rings out, and the world is silent once again. A lineage lying upon the earth, the only place it will ever exist again, erased in seconds. So, seems like the burners killed the rest of the Carter family. And Tessa looks at her with tears in her eyes and motions towards the sound as if to ask if they should go do something. But Casey shakes her head, sad that there isn't anything they can do for them now. They sling into the house, which is a mess, and they hear muffled cries from the master bedroom. They charge the room to find Elaine and her aunt bound and gagged in the corner, with Julie in really bad shape. They ungag them, and Casey inspects Julie to find a nasty gash against her head, and she's clearly concussed. And then Tessa asks where her mom is, and Elaine points to the bed, her eyes swimming in tears. Tessa approaches the bed and cries out, "Mom," as she comes to the other side of the mattress. Find Tessa's mom on the ground with a pool of blood beneath her head. Casey stops Tessa from shaking her, saying they don't know how hurt she is, and she feels for a pulse, but there isn't one. She's trying to figure out how to tell Tessa that she won't be able to speak to her mother again when suddenly her pulse starts up again. She's alive, but it's very faint. Casey asks where everyone else is, and Elaine tells her Dale and Jimmy ran to the yard when the men showed up, but she didn't see anyone else. She tells Julie that Greg is okay, and with Molly, which cheers her up a bit. Casey says her and Tessa need to find the others, but Tessa says she can't leave her mom. So Aunt Julie offers to come with her, but she's too injured too. So Casey has to go alone. They ask if she's gonna be okay, and she says yeah. I know you will. You were the strongest little girl I ever met, and now you're the strongest woman I've ever known. Elaine gives me an encouraging nod and lets go of my hand. So Casey decides to go downstairs first, thinking her dad or Jimmy would have gone to the armory first so it didn't get overtaken. And down there she sees two men near the entrance who are chatting it up while on watch duty, and she sees one of the cell doors closed, bloody handprints all over the bars, and wonders who is locked in there and if they are alive. She gets the two men with her throwing stars and then sprints at them with her knife. They hassle, it's a bit of a struggle, but Casey kills them. And then she hears a voice calling her name. And we go to the next chapter. The voice is Blake, who has very bloody hands, so she thinks he's hurt, but he says one of them got too close to his cell door and were talking nasty about what they were going to do with Julie, Elaine, and Meredith, so he grabbed the back of his head and smashed it against the bars a few times. She updates him on where everyone is that she has seen, and the death of the Carter family, and she asks if he knows where her dad, uncle, or JJ are. I overheard the two that were keeping watch. They said something about making them dig it themselves. The burn pit, past the fence. I turned to run back up the stairs, the image of my family members already lying in shallow graves, dirt being tossed on their bloody and lifeless bodies, is plastered across my mind, like the burn-in of a once static image on a TV. Casey, Blake's voice stops me dead in my tracks. He says rattling his cell door. Right. And she lets him out. And they stock up at the armory, which the burners luckily left untouched, probably thinking they had enough weapons to handle overtaking the place. And then they hear yelling from the burn pit and see that they are using the corpses that were already burned as kindling. And there's about a dozen burners around the pit, and she sees her dad get butted by a rifle, who luckily gets back up to his feet. I guess they're like making them dig the graves. We can do this, Blake says. I faced worse odds in the SEALs. These clowns probably have no training and they're too comfortable thinking they have this place under control. A quick burst from that SMG. Sarah Michelle Gellar? What's an SMG you have there? And you could injure nearly all of them before they even realize what's happening. I think Sarah Michelle Gellar could injure all of them before they even realize what's happening. She is the vampire slayer. Anyway, I nod, keeping my eyes on the burners. Here's the plan. You lay down a volley aimed at the 5 or 6 guys on the left over there. He points over my shoulder, and my eyes follow the line of his arm. That way you don't risk hitting any of your family. Worst case scenario, you injure 1 or 2 of them, and they all run in a panic, scrambling to find the source of the gunfire, giving Dale, Jimmy, and JJ time to either flee or grab a weapon and fight. Meanwhile, I strike from the wings, Velociraptor style. Clever girl, I smile, picturing Blake emerging from the thick brush of the woods, the fire in his green eyes turning them into a searing yellow as he unleashes hell. Exactly. What's the best case scenario? Huh? You said worst case, but you didn't tell me the best case. Oh, best case, you kill all of them on the spot and it becomes 2 versus 10 instead of what it is now. Any more questions? What are you gonna do? Don't I need to know you're part of the plan? Blake squats down to the forest floor, using some of the still moist blood on his hands to make a paste out of the soil, turning it into a thick red-brown sludge. He closes his eyes and smears it all over his face. His eyes pop back open, the whites standing out like keys on a piano against his camouflage skin. Don't worry about me, Doomsday. Blake smiles and disappears into the woods without another word. That's exactly what I'm going to give these burners, their very own Doomsday. And then the burners instruct them to stop digging as it's deep enough now and for them to face away from the holes, and her dad asks if they're going to shoot them now, but they laugh and ask what would be the fun in that. They're gonna burn them alive. The lead burner kicks her dad in the chest, making him fall into the open grave, and is about to light him on fire when Casey takes the gun and starts spraying bullets at them. She hits 5 men who all end up on the ground, dead or alive, and the other 7 have turned to the woods, firing wildly, hoping to hit her, which she anticipated, so she's hiding behind one of the oak trees. One burner orders them to get into the woods and kill whoever did it, so she darts to another cover and she sees JJ and Jimmy struggling with the men who are in front of them, trying to grab weapons. She's about to be surrounded though, and she doesn't know where Blake is. And then one of the burners grabs her and starts yelling he found her, when blood pools out of his mouth because Blake has just plunged a knife into his throat. And before she can even speak, he goes back into the cover of the forest, and 2 burners come around the trail with salivating smiles when they see her until they see the corpse on the ground. And this is another long section, but it was hard for me to summarize, so. What the hell, one of them says just as a flash of black appears from behind a tree. Blake slides across the dry foliage, and his knife glistens between the first burner's legs, the fabric of his pants soaking in an upside-down bead, like he's just wet himself. The burner falls to his knees as Blake pops back to his feet, grabbing the second man by his hair and plunging the knife into the side of his neck. He pushes it in farther, dragging it up and down to rip through the flesh and tendon, the burner's head now looking like a Pez dispenser. The first burner is still on his knees, frozen, eyes wide, and mouth agape, but no sound is being emitted. I point to the man as if to say, what about him? Blake shakes his head. I severed his femoral artery. He'll be dead in less than 30 seconds. He disappears again, a wisp in the air, like the last breaths of men he just encountered. Jesus, he's like super sadistic Batman. In the distance, I hear the symphony of Blake's destruction, a crescendo working in tandem, the string section willing out, screaming their final notes. Then a new sound joins the fray. Enough with the games, a loud voice shakes through the woods. Come out now, or we'll burn all three of them alive. Blake returns to my side without a sound. He and I can see the burn pit through the trees. My dad, Jimmy, and JJ are all kneeling with their hands placed against the back of their heads. A burner is standing behind each of them. The leader paces back and forth in front of them, the gas canister swinging at his side. What do we do? I ask, frantic and scared. Surrender. Surrender? Are you joking? Trust me, Blake says, putting his hands up and walking out of the woods. I shake my head in disbelief. He gave up so easily after all that show of skill and bravado for what, a few more dead burners? I follow him, hands up, trusting he has a plan and will get us out of this. Ah, there you are, Mr. G.I. Joe himself, ripping my men apart. Now walk over. The ugly burner gasps when his eyes land on me. What do we have here? Aren't you a pretty little thing left behind in this ugly world? Toss all your weapons on the ground, and please don't pretend like you each only have one gun. I can see your clothes bulging everywhere, and if I have to come search you, then well, I'll just kill you on the spot. I look to Blake and he nods, confirming that I should follow the orders. He lobs me a small wink, and it instantly makes me feel calm and better about the situation. We pitch our guns into the grass, creating a small cache of firepower until the leader seems satisfied that we've given up all our weapons. You see, I was going to just kill you and then burn these three, but how about a little trade instead? If you, he points to Blake, burn the three of them, he waves his hands to JJ, my dad, and Uncle Jimmy, I'll let you kill yourself fast and easy. And I'll let the girl live. She can. He licks his lips before flicking his tongue in and out of his mouth like a lizard. Join us.
You are creepy as shit.
Blake looks to me and then the faces of my family. That's the best offer you're going to get, soldier, and the clock is ticking. The leader glances down at his wrist, pretending to count down the seconds on a watch that isn't there. 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, I'll do it, Blake says, shuffling toward them, his head and shoulders sunk down as he avoids making eye contact with me. Blake, no, you can't trust them. I start to run at him, but the leader draws a pistol from his side, cocking it and pointing it directly at me. Let's not be too eager. Trust me, you'll have plenty of time to play later. He looks me up and down, taking me in again before his lust turns to surprise. Wait a minute, I know you. You're that little bitch from Chicago. You did this to me. He slaps his palm into his own face, fingers wide as he slowly drags it across the topography of his features. You ruined my fucking face. To be fair, it wasn't good to begin with, I quip, not allowing him to rattle me. The other three burners stifle laughs as their leader glares at them before leveling his attention back on me. Oh, I'm gonna enjoy the future that's in store for you. I can picture it now. Night after night, piece by piece, the horrors that will come your way. You'll be wishing I'd just kill you, take you out of your misery, but I won't. You'll come to look at this ruined face as the most beautiful thing in the world, and you'll beg it for salvation. He turns to Blake, pointing the gun at him. But a deal's a deal, so the girl shall live. Forever, if I can help it. I'm sorry, Casey, but I can't watch you die. Blake continues walking toward JJ, the gas canister lifted up to his chest. JJ hangs his head, his shoulders tightening. That's a good boy. Now you sit tight here, my angel, and enjoy the show. The leader walks back behind my father, firing the pistol into the air right next to his ear. My dad instinctively cups his ear, the drum likely shattered. The leader presses the muzzle of his pistol into his hand, searing a red ring into the skin. My father shouts at the pain. Stop it, I yell, my voice crackling with rage. Stop? Oh, we're just getting started. He fires off around near Blake's feet, the earth kicking up around him. Quit stalling, pretty boy, and do it, or the deal's off. Blake lifts the canister over JJ's head and starts to tilt it. Sorry, man, just picture my face on the men behind you. Huh? JJ responds, confused by his statement. My hand moves down to my tried and true beauties at my side all along as Blake's words sink in. He whips the gas canister forward, hitting the burner standing behind JJ square in the nose. It sends him toppling back into the open grave. Blake leaps to his feet, his knife outstretched as the burner behind my Uncle Jimmy turns his gun on him and fires off a shot, ripping through the top layer of flesh on Blake's left arm, just before the blade of the knife disappears into the man's temple. I stand and throw one star at the man positioned behind my father. The silver disc spins like a buzzsaw, ripping into the bridge of his nose as two of the prongs poke out both of his eyes at once. The other star I hurl at the leader with more venom and force than I've put behind any throw I've made in my life, but the extra force doesn't have the desired effect, as it leaves my hand a split second later, causing it to veer slightly down to the left, lodging into his collarbone. He screams out, a fit of rage and pain causing him to drop the gun. My father, realizing the opportunity, grabs for the weapon, but the leader recovers too quickly and crushes Dad's hand beneath his boot. "I'll kill you all," he yells, kneeing my father in the face. I sprint toward the deformed object of my hatred, hoping to tackle him into the grave before he has time to get control of the gun, but the distance is too great, and within a second I'm staring down the barrel of a pistol. "Such a waste," the leader says, eyeing my living body one last time. "Oh well," he thumbs the back hammer and squeezes the trigger. The world around me freezes, the burst of flame from the gun becomes the sun, everything else in the vicinity around it sucked in by its gravity. The bullet spirals out of the weapon, a satellite launched into orbit by rocket fuel. The leader's eyes are red, reflecting the fire from the burn pit, channeling through his body into the object of his hand, but the pull of the gravity is even stronger from another celestial body, the full beard, buzzed hair, and broad shoulders, diving to intercept the missile in flight. And then time starts back up. Oh god, in chapter 39. So she screams for her dad and runs toward him, and the burner starts bragging that he will get to kill her while she watches her father bleed out. When Blake plunges his knife into the side of the burner's face, swiping his nose and cheek off his skull with one clean swipe. The pain is so intense the burner tries to shoot himself, but Blake strikes the gun from his hand and shoves him into a grave before kicking burning embers into the hole. And then JJ runs over with the gas canister and pours it on the grave, burning the burner alive. Casey can't relish the moment though, because she has to try to save her dad. She screams for them to get her towels or anything to stop the bleeding. Blake tells him to hang in there. He's the toughest son of a bitch he knows, and a little bullet isn't going to take him out. And Casey realizes he is crying. "Sweetheart," my dad's gaze lands on me. His voice cracks, faint, weak, the smell of iron coming from his mouth. "Dad," I say, swallowing the sob that threatens to pour out. "Hold on just a little longer. I can save you." "You already did," he says. I can see the look of acceptance in his eyes, the look that a patient gives me after I have told them that final sweet lie, that everything is going to be fine. The look that says, "I'm okay with this. I know he's drifting away from me, but I don't want him to. I can't do this without you, Dad. Please, you have to stay." My tears fall fast and hard, a torrential downpour of sadness. My lips stick together from excess saliva mixing with the salty pang. "You can. I know you can," he smiles, lifting his other hand to brush away the hairs clean my cheeks. I shake my head defiantly, saying no over and over again. "I'm sorry for ruining your childhood." He coughs a fine mist of blood mixed with his saliva. Speckles of red quickly stain his cheeks and beard. "You didn't." I squeeze his hand and press down harder, willing him to stay alive, to stay with me. I feel the pressure from Blake doing the same. "I did. I know I did, but I just..." He coughs again, even more blood coming out, this time thick enough to emerge as full drops. "I just wanted you to realize that even when it feels like the world has ended, yours doesn't have to." Tears fall from my eyes, dripping onto his shirt, getting lost in the sea of red. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, Case." His eyes swing to Blake. "Take care of my girl," he says. Blake nods and whispers, "I will, I promise." Dad's gaze returns to me and he cups my face with his hand, gently stroking my cheek with his thumb. My body shakes with grief, but I'm trying to hold still and strong so he will too. "Your mother would be so proud of you," he says, barely getting the words out. His hand slips from my face and falls to the grass, his eyes staring up at the sky. The sob rips through me and I throw myself across my father's chest, hugging him tight as I can, willing him to come back. Guys, that's fucking sad. I thought this was gonna be like little romance, and then we get that making me tear up a bit. We go to chapter 40, where Casey is burying her father in the hole she dug for him herself. Everyone wanted to help, but this was her hole to dig and fill, and she thinks her dad would have wanted it that way. And we got some more emotional stuff to read out. A cry starts deep in my gut, climbing upward. As it grows, it stretches my esophagus, pushing its way out of me, and I have no more tears left. I have either cried them all out, or my body is too dehydrated to make more. "Are we almost done yet, Dad?" I whisper through a sob, wishing and hoping he'd answer me, even if to tell me, "No, Casey, we're just getting started." because that's truly what I wish. I wish we were just getting started, and I know now that was the point of everything my dad did, everything he had us do, the time we spent prepping and working, and all the blood, sweat, and tears we shed. None of it was for the end. It was for a beginning, and my father didn't prepare me for the end of the world. He prepared me to start a new one, and I just wish he were a part of it. This is making me tear up again, guys. The final spade of soil falls into his grave, and I pat the blade against it several times, flattening out the dirt, wanting to keep him safe and secure in there. I chose the spot beneath the apple tree, the same one he and I used to sit under eating our sandwiches on a break or ice cream after a long day of hard work. I figured this is where he'd want to be if he couldn't be here with me. Ugh. It's so sad to think about how they just started rekindling their relationship and now she has lost him. I'm glad they had a resolution to things before she lost him though. And then Blake approaches with 2 ice cream drumsticks, the same her dad used to enjoy after a long day of hard work. And he tells her that her dad was saving them and he thought she might like to have one with him. So they sit in the grass by his grave and he holds her as they eat the ice cream. And he tells her they're going to be okay no matter what the new world throws at them. And she says she knows her dad made sure of that.
The world is ours!
A tear falls from the corner of his eye and he holds me a little tighter. I lean in, planting my ice cream coated lips against his. They're extra sweet and they might just be the sweetest thing I've ever tasted. Oh. And then we get an epilogue, and it's 6 months later. Molly is in an all-white dress, as Casey tells her she looks beautiful. It's actually Casey's mother's wedding dress, which Molly asks if it's sure it's okay she wears, and Casey insists it is. Her mom wouldn't have wanted it to go to waste sitting in some drawer, and she would have wanted to be put to good use. So Molly says, but what about you and Blake if wouldn't you want to wear it? Molly asks, well, we were enemies first, then lovers, then enemies again, and now lovers. So we're due to switch back to enemies very soon, I say with a laugh. So don't worry about us. This is your day. That's right, Molly, so enjoy it, because tomorrow it's back to training and surviving the end of the world, Tessa says as she swipes an old Maybelline blush across her cheeks. I pat her shoulder as she gets to her feet and stands beside me. Thank you both for standing up with me. Molly beams at us, tears in her eyes. We grab her hand and squeeze it, creating a little sisterhood circle of our own. And I love the little sisterhood we had. I thought Molly was going to be an enemy at first, but I love that she's a girl's girl. And then Tessa and Casey wear these old dresses back from like a high school that she found in their closet, so they look a little ridiculous, but work with what you got. And Blake asks to come in and Molly says of course. He's in his navy dress attire, the only formal outfit he could find, but Casey likes a man in uniform, so it works out. And he tells them they all look beautiful. Don't lie to me, Blake, Tessa says, trying to flatten out her puffy pink dress. I look like a cake topper for a little girl's birthday party. But a beautiful cake topper, I tease. Blake smiles and steps to me, kissing my cheek and resting his hand on my waist to pull me into him. And you look like you should be on top of something else, he whispers, biting the tip of my earlobe. I giggle, giving him a smoldering look as I pull away. You two are disgustingly cute, Tessa says with a smirk. Yeah, you're like a younger Greg and me. Our puppy love growing into a full dog. Molly cups her hands together over her heart. I furrow my brow. I'm like a decade older than you, and I've known Blake since I was 13. Love works in mysterious ways, she beams. She's funny. I like her character. But Blake tells them they're all ready if she is, and they head out to the front lawn, which is set up for a makeshift wedding. And we get a little overview of what's happened in the last 6 months. Over the last 6 months, we've taken in 12 people, so there are many new faces gathered before us. After a successful mission to the hospital, we got a little bolder with our scavenge runs, confident that we could handle ourselves, even in places filled with biters. We explored more hospitals, gated homes, and government buildings, but the jackpot was a secured warehouse. We found enough grains and canned goods to feed everyone here for years, so when we discovered stragglers in need of saving, we welcomed them into the fold. We've built several new cabins, made the dummy house livable again, and fortified our perimeter even more, raising the height of the barbed wire and adding a day shift for patrolling. We vowed to never allow an attack like we suffered to befall us again, or at least we'll do everything in our power to stop it from happening again. Standing off to the side from Aunt Julie is Terrence with a harmonica in his hand, ready to play the wedding procession down the aisle. He's a large man in his late 50s with dark skin, a barrel-sized chest, and a thick beard. Terrence is one of the new faces who joined us during his scavenging raid. Near the end of a run, we were loading up the truck, and in the moment of brief silence, we heard a sound that none of us had heard in a very long time. music. Sitting on the roof of a house with a rifle resting on his lap was Terrence, playing his harmonica without a care in the world. He had barricaded the first floor of the house, coming and going through a second-story window. With the use of a rope ladder he could retract back into itself with a hidden pull cord. Blake and I struck up a conversation with him like neighbors greeting one another while out on a walk. We got along well, and it felt like the old normal. He's been with us ever since. Terrence is one tough son of a bitch, but not the toughest son of a bitch I know. He reminds me a lot of my dad, and I think the two of them would have been fast friends. Oh, sweet. And then, yeah, Elaine and Casey tell each other they look nice, and JJ asks if he can walk Elaine to her seat, and Molly waves Casey over and tells her that when she pictured this day, her family was all there, and her dad would give her away. And Casey comforts her and tells her just because it isn't what she pictured doesn't mean it can't be wonderful, and there are so many people here who love her. And Molly thanks her and says she's ready. And Blake then greets her again. We get this cute last little moment. What did you have in mind? I raise a brow. Huh? His face is confused. Sniper tower, cab of the truck, treehouse. What would you like me on top of? Blake smirks. Definitely a tower, but not the sniper variety. Tower? Let's not go overboard. Seems to do the trick for you, he winks, making me laugh. My eyes veer back to Tessa and JJ, realizing they're more than halfway to Greg, so we missed our mark. Whoops, we're up, I say, tugging him forward. He grins at me and mouths, I love you, as we walk down the aisle. And she mouths, I love you back. And everyone's in place, and they start the ceremony. It's going great, and it's beautiful, and the book's gonna end with a happy ending, right? No, because Casey sees a semi-truck heading down the highway. Suddenly the truck slows. My heart pounds as I watch it, hoping it's nothing. But then several men appear on top of the trailer, having climbed up the back of it. They get in a line, seemingly facing us, pulling items out of backpacks slung over their shoulders. One of them drops down on his belly while another man places something large and black in front of him. It takes me a moment to realize what it is, but when I do, my eyes go wide. It's a sniper rifle. If anyone has any objections, speak now or forever hold your peace, Angeli says, scanning the crowd. It's quiet for only a split second until I scream, Run! Just as bullets rip through the air, hitting the ground around us. And that's how it ends, guys. I did not expect a cliffhanger. I thought this was a one-shot. I hear there is going to be a sequel, but I don't know exactly when it comes out. That was fun. It was very serious at times, but it was fun. I really enjoyed the dynamic between her and Blake. She's a little too stubborn at times, and then like she gives Blake all this shit, but then excuses all these asshole remarks that Nate makes. So it's just a little annoying there. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I liked the relationship with her dad too. I could see both sides of her being upset about how she was raised, but also, of course, it ended up being pretty necessary to be raised that way. What are the odds? And yeah, it was super fun, and it gave me that little bit of Walking Dead vibes that I missed. I honestly liked it more than any other of Jeneva Rose's books. But yeah, it was fun. That's all I gotta say. It was fun. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't some incredible piece of literature that I'm gonna come back to again and again, but I really needed something a little more lighthearted, and that filled the void for me. And also, the writing wasn't completely stupid like a lot of the books I review on here are. So yeah, I would recommend 3 stars. Thank you so much for watching this probably very, very long video. I will be back soon with those more in-depth reviews I was talking about. And yeah, thank you so much for watching and have a great day.